Hey, good morning. Good morning, Hawk. Good to see you, or Hoach, however you want me to pronounce it. All right. And as with all Counterpoint streams, we start with the anthem.
Donald Trump chose as his running mate?
I'm a never Trump guy. I'm a never Trump guy. I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him. I'm a never Trump guy. 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 I never liked him. I never liked him. I never racism. I'm a never Trump guy. Xenophobia. I'm a never Trump guy. Racism. I'm a never Trump guy. Xenophobia. I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him. I never liked him. I'm a never Trump guy. 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 I never liked him. I'm a never Trump guy. 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 I never liked him.
Oh, man, I'm going to be bumping that into my 80s. Now, that being said, good morning, ladies and germs. It is great to see you fine folk already this morning. We already got, almost a dozen people, so I appreciate that. We are going to be watching some fairly interesting content. There's also some cool things going on. Johnny Blaze, good to see you. Philip Coffey, good to see you. Drew Pavlu, of course, a Australian lib shit poster, has been collecting a bunch of information. There's two funny stories alongside here. But for those of you who don't know, there was an attack in Washington, D.C., in which two staffers for the embassy got murdered. Actually, pretty sad if you take a look at it. The D.C. Israel not stabbing, it was a shooting, right? Shooting victims. So if we take a look at them, it's a very young couple. Now, I get it descriptively what's going on, but the love story of two Israeli embassy staffers was cut short by bullets. Slain staffer Yaron Lejinsky had purchased an engagement ring and was planning to propose to his colleague Sarah Milgram. This is them right here. So, oh, sorry, I'm not even sharing it with you. Let me show you. My apologies. Here we go. So, obviously, tragic. You can hate the state of Israel. You can hate what they're doing in Gaza. You can even understand the logic of this terrorist who murdered people. But that doesn't change the fact that effectively what happened was two Israelis who worked for the Israeli diplomatic staff, diplomatic corps at the embassy, were leaving the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington when they were cut down by some rando with a firearm. So kind of crazy. And the funny thing is the dude had a manifesto. We could take a look at it, but basically what I've seen is that it was related to Palestine, where this guy thought that, murdering these two people was justified because Israel is currently perpetuating a genocide, right? So eye for eye, tooth for tooth, that kind of thing. Well, what's interesting about this story is that the ADL, the ADL called out Hasan Piker by name. Take a look at this. So the Observer, was he a Hasan tier 2 sub? I would not be surprised. But the head of the ADL directly blames Hasan the Hun for the DC shooting. The full force of the U.S. government is about to come down on him. When these things happen, politicians look for a scapegoat to show that they're doing something. Hasan will be that guy. You know what's crazy, though, is everything that Hasan Piker has said is protected by the First Amendment. I think he's vile. I think he's an enemy of the United States. I think he's an open enemy of the United States. I think he's a propagandist for terrorists. And the only reason why he's getting away with doing what he's doing is because he doesn't do direct calls to violence. He does indirect calls to violence. He does indirect stochastic terrorism, effectively. So let's go ahead and watch the ADL call out Hasan Piker by name, which is kind of wild. And then we'll break that down and go into a few things that the Hasan orbit has said.
All of us need to call it out. I'm thinking about the New York Times doing a gauzy profile a few weeks ago of this gamer, Hasan Piker, who regularly employs awful genocidal rhetoric against Jewish people in the Jewish state. Like, extremists should not be empowered. People who spout prejudice should not be platformed. This is a moment when we need to look ourselves in the mirror and say, we've got to stop this because the consequences are deadly.
So regardless of how you feel about it, so Corey Peltzman says, this is what globalizing the Intifada is. It's not peaceful despite what the movement claims. Yeah. Then Wowman says, I bet anybody in this chat $100 that Hasan will reframe this as bad faith distraction from the genocide in Gaza. He already has, bud. He already has. So Hasan Piker. Let's take a look. Don't I have his original? It's Hasan the Hun, isn't it? Let's take a look at his profile because I want to show you what he already reframed it as. He already reframed it as Jews are making the genocide about themselves. I need to verify myself so I can get. No way! No way! Did he nuke his own account? Oh, hold on. Posts. Okay, that was a Twitter thing. All right. For a second, I thought he deleted all of his posts. That would have been hysterical. So 2 Israeli embassy officials get killed, and Ethan Klein predictably moves to make the moment about himself from the comfort of his mansion as the criminal state his community keeps defending continues with its unlimited child murder. So yeah, he already reframed it as, don't you know there's a genocide going on? And this is something that the lefties will never concede, is that 2 bad things can exist at once. A direct quote tweet to the clip that we just saw is, Israel's an apartheid state doing a live stream genocide. I think it's wrong and dangerous to conflate these heinous acts with Jews. The Apartheid Defense League doesn't because they think they can improve Israel's standing by silencing its critics. It won't change the truth. Well, the only thing that I can say is I think he's an enemy of the United States. I think he's an enemy of Israel. I think he's a piece of garbage, but at least he stands on business, I guess. There are plenty of other people who would have clammed up, deleted their entire Twitter history, been totally pusillanimous about everything. And I still think he's a propagandist. He's like, oh yeah, the government is coming after me. And it's like, well, for not yet. And for what, right? If you don't materially, meaning that you provide weapons, arms, money, all that kind of stuff to a terrorist organization. And then if you don't directly call for violence, you indirectly call for violence, then there's not really much that the United States government can do, right? Excuse me. So anyways, so we just saw the ADL call out Hasan Piker directly. Let's take a look at some of the evidence that Hasan is actually a dirtbag. So let's take a look at this clip brought by Drew Pavlo.
I always say, Bad Empanada and I don't disagree on our ultimate goals. We just disagree on methods. I always say.
So Hasan Piker, of course, ethnically Turkish gentleman born in New Jersey to Mehmet Piker, who was a millionaire, billionaire from Turkey, gave his son a Nepo baby media career with his uncle Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks. He leveraged that into a live stream. Destiny helped platform him, blow him up, get him big, etc. But truth is, he probably would have been successful on his own because he's a himbo. He's a traditionally good-looking man who spouts lefty bullshit talking points. And so as a result, he's blown up on the platform Twitch. This is Bad Empanada, who's basically like a serial killer, one step away from like actually murdering someone. He's obviously doxed people. He's obviously harassed people. He's led digital harassment campaigns. In particular, he's gone after Ethan Klein, a Jewish podcaster. He's platformed when Ethan's family got diarrhea one week. He narrativized that story into being Ethan Klein lets his dogs poop all over the house. Therefore, his kids are getting diseases previously unknown to science, and everybody is getting sick with diarrhea. Therefore, he's a neglectful and abusive husband and father. That led to Child Protective Services going to Ethan Klein's house. And then almost simultaneously to that, human skulls from a cadaver website were sent to Ethan Klein. So this is all in the context of heating up, stochastic terrorist calls to violence against Jews in the Western world because of what's happening in Israel and Gaza. And remember that Ethan Klein isn't somebody who's saying like, oh yeah, it's good that the Gazan military campaign is going on. It's good that all these, Gazan civilians are getting wiped out. He's not saying that. He's not saying rah, settlers in the West Bank, let's go. He's not saying any of that crap. He's saying, hey, maybe don't murder Israeli civilians, and we need a peaceable solution that actually recognizes the dignity of the Palestinians. But that's not enough for these freak leftoids. So that's Hasan. And Hasan, relatively speaking, is careful about direct calls for violence, but he also said he was caught in a clip saying, oh, I don't have a problem with Hezbollah, which he has recategorized as neutral and recategorized as he doesn't have a problem with Hezbollah's operations in southern Lebanon, even though Hezbollah is a designated terrorist organization that supported the Bashir al-Assad regime, which is from Syria, which did do heinous crimes that make Israel look like a daycare. And then what was the other thing that he did? Oh, and then he 10 toes down supports the Houthi Red Sea blockade, which is effectively shooting missiles and drones into random commercial vessels. So he's a terrorist endorser and apologist. He just doesn't go all the way into actual criminal activity. Whereas this guy, because he's in Argentina, he does endorse and engage in criminal activity because he knows he won't be arrested or extradited. All right, so these are Hasan Piker
up the numbers, okay?
So let's see what they have to say about, you know, geopolitics in general. I'm sure it won't be calls for stochastic violence.
Up the number, okay? 30K to anyone who'll make this dipshit disappear.
Bro, that Destiny guy needs to get
In her defense, that was about Grums. Grums is crazy annoying on Twitter. And the other sentence is, you have to make a girl's boobs bigger in a video game. I do think we should still be charitable to our enemies. And so Denham's, again, stochastic calling for violence, piece of garbage, propagandist. However, it needs to be pointed out that she was obviously joking, even if it's still a stochastic call for violence.
Not gonna fucking lie.
It would just be so easy to just, it would solve all of our problems. Like, we would have socialism now at this point, right? We would have socialism at this point if someone just went out of their way and
he's talking about Destiny, by the way. So he's talking about murdering the omniliberal Destiny.
it would be so easy.
Thing that happens, I mean, like, holy shit, guys. If you live in Florida, I have an opportunity for you. If you want to earn $100,000, let me know.
Up the number.
And then that's actually just Mike from PA, a Hasan Piker waiting room, offering $100,000 for a bounty to go beat the crap out of Destiny and or hurt or kill him. Idris Williams says, is Hasan responsible for the actions of an adult person? We'll get into the morality of stochastic calls for violence momentarily.
People living in the...
So hold on. This is probably the most blatant one. This is Noah Sampson, who was just on a pro-Palestinian fundraising stream with Bad Empanada, with Hasan Piker, with Denham's, with Mike from PA. He's a leftist video essayist, and he's annoying as hell. But this is the most blatant call for violence. And then this is Lonerbox, who correctly breaks it down for us. So let's watch this clip before we break it down all together.
The West have the most power over anyone else in the world to stop the genocide. We are living in the belly of the beast. We have direct geographical, physical access to the politicians, the propagandists, the weapons companies, and the supply chains that are facilitating this genocide. Protesting is great. We should keep doing that. But also, you know, I feel like we have to be honest with ourselves. 17 months in, and what is protesting actually accomplished? Raising awareness, sure. Divestment, yeah, in some places. But really, politically, materially, nothing. Israel just killed the most children in its history in a single night with total impunity, with a deafening silence among the Western media. If we want this genocide to stop, it's time to escalate. That's all I'm saying. So anyways, yes.
You can. I'm not even gonna go into Lonerbox's breakdown. He correctly breaks down the logical inferences. I'm gonna break down the logical inferences. So protest hasn't worked. The state of Israel is actively engaging in a genocide. Protesting is good, and leftists should keep doing that. However, we need to escalate, and we're in the belly of the beast with direct physical access to the defense companies, the politicians, the whoever who are helping to facilitate the genocide. How could you not watch Mike from PA and Denham's call for bounties against their enemies, jokingly or not? How could you not watch Sean DeBlack saying that Stephen, a liberal, ostensibly on the left, but not left enough, should be murdered? How can you not watch Bad Empanada claim to send human skulls to Ethan Klein and also engineer a harassment campaign against Ethan Klein, who, by the way, is not a rabid Zionist genocide freak. He's like a normie who just wants to see the violence end. He's just insufficiently left. And then how could you not watch Hasan Piker effectively endorse all of this by inference, and then not only endorse all of this by inference, but also, quote unquote, 10 toes down, endorsing the terrorism of the Houthis, sweeping for the violence of Hamas, and then sweeping for the violence of Hezbollah, and not just infer like, oh yeah, these guys support jihadist terrorism. So that's all that's going on, is that they have all endorsed the murder of the DC Israeli couple. They've all endorsed it. They've all said that it logically follows. You should go ahead and do that. They don't have the stones to do it themselves because they're not going to risk their careers. They're not going to risk their income. They're not going to risk their safety or their liberty. But they'll schizo post out to tens of thousands of people every single day until eventually some freak goes and buys a gun and murders a few people because they think that it's the right thing to do. So, yeah. Now I'll engage with chat because I did see some questions coming in reference to the actual morality and responsibility of these parties. So let's take a look. Excuse me. I think specifically somebody said, is Hasan Piker responsible for the actions of another adult? All right. And you guys are all like waking up and getting your coffee, and I'm like hitting you with like murder and terrorism like almost immediately. Everybody's like, I'm drinking my coffee. I'm getting ready for the day. What's going on? Oh, sweet. Terrorism. Silver Jacket Man, good to see you. Philip Coffee, good to see you. Wowman 542, good to see you. Christian Valeris, good to see you. Sacred Snow, Bull Media Steel Dragon, was he a Hasan tier 2 stub? Yeah, that's a joke that I stopped with. Corey Peltzman says, this is what globalizing the Intifada, it's not peaceful despite what the movement claims. Well, it can be the same thing as what everybody else claimed about BLM. It can be 95% peaceful, meaning that they're just using their speech, and then 5% can be riots and 1% can be homicides. So they can still claim fiery but mostly peaceful terrorist violence. Wowman542 says, I will bet anybody in this chat $100 that Hasan will reframe this as bad faith distraction from the genocide in Gaza. We already reviewed that, and that is just true. Sacred Snow says, yes, good CNN pooped all over Hasan on TV. I agree that in general, it's good that Hasan is getting called out from mainstream stuff, and Twitch might actually feel the pressure to the point that they might actually enforce the TOS and either give him a temp ban or a ban. But I'm not going to lie. What's happened for me with Twitch was Twitch is where all the lefties are, right? And especially the former Twitch and YouTube politics debate scene was largely hosted on Twitch. But what ended up happening over the past year with the adpocalypse that Hasan Piker already did, what ended up happening was I went from getting around like $200 every other month, which isn't like a lot, like just $200 every 60 days because it has to hit a certain threshold to pay out. It's not a lot of money, but that's a cell phone bill, right? And then that went down to like $50 every 2 months because of the adpocalypse that Hasan Piker already instantiated, where Twitch lost like 80% of its advertisers. But somehow Twitch didn't fire the CEO and just swallowed the advertising hit. And so as a result, I'm just like, okay, well, I'll leave it up just on principle. You know, I still want to be on Twitch on principle, I guess, because there's still good people over there, even if it's not a significant part of my platform. And I'll just take my $50 every 2 months, right? But at this point, I actually think I should probably deactivate my Twitch, just number one, so I can't get banned off of the platform. And number two, it's not that much money anyways. So I should probably just shift over to YouTube realistically. Now, whether or not I actually do that, who knows? But also, who cares? Bull Media says, nah, Hasan is free to do what he does because he is Twitch's golden boy and the mainstream are hungry for a Joe Rogan of the left figure. You're right. This was a point that I wanted to make because there are people who are skeptical about whether or not alt media has any effect. I've heard this from the drama people. I've heard this from Chud. I've heard this from Queeman. I've heard this from Nick DiOrio. I've heard this from Turkey Tom, where they're very skeptical that any YouTuber or any live streamer will have any kind of mainstream effect. But I'm telling you that what happened in this previous election is that the Democratic Party, they saw what happened with TPUSA, where a bunch of young men were motivated to vote right. They voted more than young people in the past have voted, and they voted disproportionately right. And I'm just going to say it. I think that's probably because of a ground game by TPUSA and a viral game by Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens. I think that 100% got people young people motivated and motivated to vote. And then when it comes to the alt media, what effectively is happening is they're seeing the comedy podcasts like Joe Rogan Joe Rogan kind of like minted and made it acceptable to vote for Donald Trump because they had a conversation like, I don't know what, 60 days, 90 days out from the election. And that got like tens of millions of views, right? So that's the kind of press. And Tim Pool is obviously an orbiter of Joe Rogan. I'm trying to think of who else, but Tim Pool, Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk, these are all alt media dickheads with webcams, but they turn themselves into media operations, and now they get numbers akin to what is available on traditional media. There are alt media pundits who beat the numbers of traditional media shows. And so you have to understand that the alt media is the future. Is it as big as legacy media? Maybe not. Is it as powerful as legacy media? Because legacy media has all the advertisers and it has all these like setups for corporations to kind of backdoor into advertising for shows that kind of shill the stuff that they want to shill. No, it's nowhere near as formalized. But that lack of formalization also makes it ripe for capitalization. So you have to understand that the legacy in standard politicians are looking at alt media very seriously. Those are the conversations that are happening in signal chats in Washington, D.C. right now. Hoach says, Twitter is still effed for me. DM's broken and half my feed won't refresh. There we go. Wowman542 says, oh God, it was a worse reframing than I thought. Yep. Ethan conceded that Israel's committing a genocide. Like, what more do these idiots want? They want him to endorse terroristic violence against Israeli civilians. That's what they want. They want him, and he kind of already did. He already said that all settlers in the West Bank are viable military targets, including children. Ethan Klein said that. I would never say that. I don't think you get to just kill women and kids on purpose for fun during a military conflict, but these guys do. And so, excuse me. And so Ethan already said that. Now, he's probably walked that back since then, right? But at the same time, he said that. And that's more extreme than I would ever say. I would never endorse like the intentional killing of men, women, and kids who are civilians that you know to be civilians because they're in the wrong place at the wrong time. I would endorse detaining them and escorting them across the border. That's what I would endorse, but I wouldn't endorse shooting them. That's crazy pants. Sapien Green says, Hasan is something akin to a terrorist recruiter, considering what he's saying about how many people listening to him. Yeah, 100%. He's a pro-terrorist propagandist. Corey Peltzman says, these are leftist supremacists who think their version of leftism is the right one. Yeah, they're effectively like, because they don't believe in God and they haven't gone to church, they've taken all of their religious instincts and they poured it into religion. Wow Man says, a great way to start your workday on a Friday is to like the stream. He's not wrong. I'm sorry that we're talking about terrorism and violence so early in the day, but he's not wrong. Liking the stream is free. Super chats are always appreciated, never required. Watching the VODs, engaging with the VODs, dropping comments is always appreciated because that gives me that sweet, sweet AdSense revenue. So if you got money like Mr. Grassroots Hegemon, who is a fantastic supporter of the channel, seriously, but I don't even know if I could do this without you. Grassroots is just he's my sake tanuki, he's my J-Mac, he's my sugar dad. So thank you Grassroots for the donation already. But also, if y'all got money burning a hole in your pocket, do a super chat. If you don't, just engage with the VODs. Corey Peltzman says these leftist supremacists justify anyone who doesn't agree with them with their version of leftism deserves what they got. I mean, they're pretty cold-hearted, callous bastards. Bob says, I had to peek in on this live stream to let you know that no, Hasan Piker is not responsible for the DC shootings. That person feels for Palestine all by themselves. I know it's a hard concept to grasp. Well, I don't think we disagree. Let's see if we disagree with any of this. Bob says, I had to peek in on this live stream to let you know that no, Hasan Piker is not responsible for the DC shootings. That person feels for Palestine all by themselves. I know it's a hard concept to grasp. It's not. I understand that even without Hasan being a pro-Houthi, pro-Hamas propagandist, there would still be people who would just look at videos of what Israel is doing in Gaza and then freak out and then do something crazy. But I think that people like Noah Samson, people like Bad Empanada, people like Denims, people like Hasan Piker, they normalize that this behavior is acceptable. Christian Lara says, nobody is saying he's responsible. Well, Drew Pavlou might, and the ADL might. Hasan and co. catches blame for engaging in stochastic terrorism, which is true. Yeah, dude, we had like 2 years of stochastic discourse where the far right in 2016 was, by implication, calling for violence against trans people, gay people, black people, Hispanics, immigrants, all that kind of stuff. And everybody, because they took the term stochastic terrorism, and the lefties on Twitch and YouTube just beat us over the head with that line of thinking for 2 to 3 years. We all came to understand the logic of stochastic rhetoric. And to have people now be like, oh, that's not stochastic terrorism. It's like, dude, you're the one who taught me the concept. What are you talking about? Philip Coffey says, I think it's funny that stochastic terrorism is a leftist term, but the second there's evidence they are doing it, they conveniently forget what the term means. Dude, you just stole, Philip, you just stole the thought out of my head. It's like, bro, I didn't know about stochastic terrorism until 2020. You're the one who taught me the term. Like, what the hell? Oh, yeah. Warwick says, the question is, where's the link between the two? Is there even proof that the dude followed him? No, Warwick, so you're missing out on the stochastic thing, okay? So stochastic rhetoric actually, so it's like Lauren Southern and Tucker Carlson and other right-wingers popularizing the great replacement theory, okay? And then the shooter who murdered 50 Muslims in New Zealand, him being not only familiar with the great replacement theory, but also citing some conservative pundits in his manifesto. So is Lauren Southern and is Tucker Carlson specifically responsible for the actions of a terrorist? No, probably not legally, not even maybe like slightly morally, but the degree of responsibility. Let's say that there's the murder, and let's say there's the motivations for the murder. They're responsible for like 5%, 10% of the motivations for the murder, right? Not even the murder itself, just like the mentality that allows these people to snap and go on a murderous rampage. So are you going to hold somebody legally or morally responsible for being the straw that breaks the camel's back in order to commit a murder? Probably not, right? But at the same time, can you point out that they are normalizing the psychology required in order to commit a heinous act? And I think, no, you can 100% call it out. If the left wing has been calling it out for the past decade in reference to stochastic violence coming from the right, then the center and the right can 100% call out stochastic rhetoric coming from the left. So what do you think of killing kids in Gaza? You think it's fine? Hasan is against that. So he's a bad person? Kenny, are you stupid? Are you dumb? Are you dumb? Kenny? Kenny, are you dumb? Kenny, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay, Kenny? Sorry, it's going to be a long day. I'm traveling this weekend. So instead of making coffee at home, my wife bought me a $4 coffee. I apologize. Oh, it might be $5 to be honest. It's a matcha. I love matcha. Anyways, Kenny, so what do you think of killing kids in Gaza? You think it's fine? Hasan is against that, so he's a bad person? Kenny, you are like Twitch and YouTube politics 101. You're like so far behind on the argumentative ladder, it would actually take me like a year to educate you. But let's go ahead and try. So when you're in an argumentation about something, there's let's say that I say murdering random Israeli citizens is bad. Okay, that is a statement that stands by itself, and you have to determine whether or not that's good or bad. So, like, are these people getting murdered good or bad? Okay. Now, there's a secondary argument that goes along with this, which is Hasan Piker and crew are normalizing the rhetoric that allows you to murder random civilians. Okay. Those are two arguments that stand on their own about whether or not it's good to murder people and whether or not it's okay to enable rhetoric that allows you to excuse those murders. Those are 2 points that you can decide whether or not they're good or bad by themselves. Then there's another argument, which is what is Israel doing in Gaza that potentially justifies the murders? Now, you can see them as related because the justification of murder, or excuse me, the justification of military operations in Gaza, which can be viewed as genocide, is part of the rhetoric that goes along with this argument. But what you're doing is you're reframing the argument where we're not talking about these two related concepts. We're now talking about this concept. And you are arguing that because I'm saying that murder is bad, I now endorse all of the horrible things happening over here. And this is an argumentative tactic called whataboutism. In Twitch and YouTube politics, this is almost understood to be absolutely dog water rhetoric because it's so poor that you should be able to conceptualize and understand that murdering random people, number one, murdering random people is bad. That should be a statement and standard that you hold. And then number two, normalizing rhetoric that allows you to engage in acts of terrorism, including murder, are bad. You should be able to understand these two principles without bringing up this other concept. Now, if you want to talk about this other concept, we can talk about this other concept, but argumentatively, you need to understand that you're engaging in elementary school level analysis of complex socio-political issues. So, Kenny, I'm sorry that you're new, but not my fault. Excuse me. Corey says, if the dude was a Hasan follower, Hasan should get banned. Hasan should get banned anyways. He's violating Twitch terms of service. He like normalizes and platforms terrorist organizations all the time. That's a violation of Twitch terms of service. Sabine Green says, this is the first time I've heard of a Twitch apocalypse. I heard that was expected, but didn't know anything had happened. Yeah, it happened like 60 days ago, 90 days ago. There was like an 80% drop in revenue. It might have even been like 4 months ago at this point. So I'm sure they partially recovered, but still. Grassroots for 50. Thank you for the donation, King. Take whatever I didn't give to Nick DiOrio. Nick DiOrio's over there buying a Rolex. But thank you, Grassroots. You are too kind to the stream. I sincerely appreciate it. I'm gonna ask Nick DiOrio though. I'm gonna be like, hey, bro, Grassroots is my sugar daddy, and I think he gave you a bunch of money too. Can I wear your Rolex for a day? But if you drop your Twitch, where will you get your one guy content? True. There might be a value there. All right. Anyways, chat's still popping off, so we might need to move into the next content. I was bad. I didn't like the stream. Yeah, you guys need to like the stream. LB, good to see you again. Good morning, Patriots. Good morning to you as well. Morning, homie. Yep. You guys, I think President Biden is competent. Really? Pull that up, Jamie. Listen, I think that President Biden, even when his brain went to sleep for prolonged periods of time, I think that what he did was infinitely less damaging. There's already the argument that Trump ending PEPFAR, which is a George Bush initiative, which provides HIV, I think like antiviral medications, and also provides contraception for people in high-risk populations, that is already credited with saving 25 million people, is that being canceled by Donald Trump. Not only is it likely to kill hundreds of thousands of people within his term, but it's also over the course of the next decade likely to kill like tens of millions of people. So Donald Trump, through incompetence, has already effectively, through taking away very basic funding for HIV prevention, he has already killed hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. So actually like evil shit. Philip Coffey says, matcha, avocado toast. I think Connor has a coastal lib hiding inside trying to claw itself out. Listen, I shoot guns. I think the government needs to balance its budget enough that we don't bankrupt the entire country. I think you shouldn't have too much promiscuous sex. I don't hate the blacks, but I do want to solve inner city crime. I don't hate the browns, but I do want to stabilize Central and South America. I don't hate Muslims, but I do think that jihadism is a problem. I don't hate the gays, but I don't think you should do meth and then have orgies. I don't hate the transes, but I think you need to be a chill trans if society is going to accept you. So effectively, I'm, centrist lib, mild social conservatism, mild fiscal conservatism. And I love Edmund Burke. Yeah, Sober tier list. Yeah, Sacred Snow says the Twitch apocalypse happened after the Sober tier list. Yes, that's deep lore. Sacred Snow says, give the guy a break. It's not a Trump presidency without hundreds of thousands to millions of people dying from disease. True. We also had 1.1 million from COVID. Isn't that fun? John says, yo, Connor, did you see all the games from Skulls? It was good. It was good, although, John, in my opinion, they need to do a narrative campaign expansion for Space Marine 2. They shouldn't be building a brand new game with Space Marine 3. They should be they should keep the engine. They should keep the character models. They should keep everything. The graphics are great. The models are great. The environments are great. All they need to do is create new environments and new settings, and then they need to do new character models for new enemies, and then they need to bring in those enemies. So they need to do Necrons or Eldar or Cultists or Chaos or well, I mean, they already did Cultists and Chaos, but they need to reskin for like Black Legion or Word Bearers or something like that. And you need to change the play style. Like you could keep the cultist model, right, of like mortal humans, and you could keep the Chaos Space Marine model of like a Heretic Astartes and a Terminator, but then you could reskin them in order to be World Eaters, Word Bearers, Black Legion. And then depending on what Chaos Legion you're fighting, you can change the play style. So with the Tzeentchian cultists, like they did bum rush you, but they also used like stub guns and magic. You need to change that for World Eaters and Cornate cultists to effectively charge you with melee weapons. So I don't want to get distracted because I know not everybody understands Warhammer 40K, but I hope the Warhammer 40K nerds in chat appreciate that. Dave Usubiaga says, how about restoring the tax cuts at least until the debt crisis is resolved? Yeah, dude, I don't know what you're saying necessarily, but what I would say is Trump doing tax cuts is crazy pants. I thought we were trying to balance the budget, and instead we're passing tax cuts. Absolutely insane. Silver Jacket says, oh, did you see the Dark Heresy preview yesterday on Owlcat? I was a big fan of Pathfinder, so I'm pretty psyched for it. Yeah, I don't really like turn-based games that much, but that doesn't mean that I couldn't have fun doing it. So if I become a multimillionaire, we'll make a game day and then we'll do that. So give me like 5 more years and then we'll have a game night and we'll all play turn-based Warhammer 40K games and we'll build up a squad. Also, the coolest thing, sorry to politics people. I promise I'll get back into politics momentarily. Give me another minute. So the new release for the Arbites on Darktide. I love Darktide, but the game cycle of just running in and killing like 1,000, bad guys and then just doing that over and over again, I got bored with it. And the cosmetics weren't enough to keep me around. But doing cosmetics for a Tempesta Scion, doing cosmetics for an Adeptus Arbites, which is effectively Judge Dredd, and slaughtering cultists left, right, and center is so awesome that I 100%, I want to do like fire teams. You know what I'm saying? I want to get 3 or 4 people in the community who also love Darktide, who also love Space Marine 2. And I want to create a fire team and I want to go do like tactical stuff where we're like, watch your left, watch your right, enemies to the rear. There's a boomer, 50 yards out. And like we could break it down where, we could all run Scions, we could all run Ogren, we could, run like a team that meshes well. Like I would love to do that with like comms, and I would love to do a game night. That would be sick. But anyways, let's not get distracted. There's politics people here. Brandon Zero says, Connor, are you still doing that project about fitting in all of science fiction in the gaps of Warhammer 40K? Yeah, kind of. But to be honest, I did another one of those videos and it bombed. So I tried to incorporate Prey, the Predator movie, into my Warhammer 40K video, and I got like 3,000 views in 24 hours. Nobody gave a shit. So I think I would have to create a new channel in order to do it. 4 big guys. 4 big guys. All right. Anyways, let's get back into the news. I'm apologizing to the politics people. I know I like to yap. I know I like to yap about Warhammer and science fiction, but you're going to have to deal with me sometimes. Sometimes that's going to happen. So anyways, this is something that's really funny. We're not getting into the content yet. We're going to do 2 more silly stories. So apparently Tom Foolery Show, who is, mid-size 100 viewer Andy, 50 viewer Andy from Twitch and YouTube politics, who's kind of a veteran of the debate scene. Apparently he was talking shit about Dean Withers, and then Dean Withers was spurging out in his chat. So I want to take a look at that. For those of you who don't know, Dean Withers is like he's like a debate bro who does a TikTok live, who actually has insane metrics, but every time he gets in trouble, he kind of tucks his tail between his legs and runs away. So I wanted to take a look at this because it's only 1 minute and 21 seconds. So I want to see what's going on.
Why don't you all have this energy for Destiny? Because they're scared of Destiny. One
singular question, bro. Come on, bro. What this is like, dude, this is like a Xander Hall. Keffel's meme. One singular question. Come on, bro. One question. I'm trying to buy my way up. A penny for your thoughts. One question. One brief question. Dude's ducking. Why are y'all saying he's MS-13? Laugh my ass off. Can I ask you one question? Can we please just talk, man? What if you gave me 30 seconds for one question? 30 seconds? One question? Not one question? One question. Come on, man. Holy cow, he's ducking. All right, I'm going to let it play. I just wanted to make fun of Dean real quick.
Yeah, if Dean's coming here to talk to me, yet refusing to talk to Destiny, so, oh, that would be unproductive, I think is what Parker said.
He wants to debate you. He challenged you publicly. Didn't you see it?
I think I just wanted to talk about the Z stuff, but...
Didn't he ask about, like, a
Both you and
conversation?
Parker.
So I have contentions with, like, certain facts that would make it very uncomfortable for me to go on a stream. What
are those facts?
I see no point to engage in that conversation with Destiny.
I
don't think that's productive.
We found out about his true character at a dinner. You guys are coming here to talk to me while running from fucking Destiny. I wish y'all kept this same energy for Dean and Parker while they're fucking running. Destiny has called them out numerous times saying that he wants to debate them. They've been running this entire time and making up the dumbest excuses. They were fine with him after that dinner. They didn't have any problems with him after that dinner. It wasn't until recently where he has problems. Destiny has serious problems with some of the actions that he's committed. It's not pure enough for me. I'm sorry. Does that mean Nick Fuentes is pure enough for y'all motherfuckers? Dean's okay with debating Nick Fuentes. Destiny, not pure enough, not clean enough. But Nick Fuentes, yeah, he passes. He passes the test, apparently.
So, anyways, excuse me. LB says, Dean Withers is fine. He's more right than wrong. I like those youngsters. They're well read. LB, I don't hate, but the thing is they're young, they're zealous, and that can be good to a degree, but they're also libs. And I'm not trying to dog on libs. Probably 70% of my chat are liberals who are pissed off at liberals or liberals who are pissed off at leftists, right? But the thing is, when you have that kind of like, I'm just going to say it, when you have that like soy aggressive attitude of like, debate me, bro, debate me, bro, debate me, bro. Destiny had that attitude a decade ago and it worked out great for him. He became the debate bro of the left, like champion for a long time. So it's not whether or not it's a good tactic. It is a good tactic. The question is whether or not it's annoying. And the answer is it's annoying. So it's not, I respect the hustle, right? I respect Dean and Parker and all their hustle. But if you have that kind of hustle, if you have that kind of energy, if you're going to come after tomfoolery, if you're going to come after Nick Fuentes, if you're going to come after Hasan Piker, if you're going to come after all these characters, and by the way, I think Dean Withers pulled punches when it came to Hasan Piker. Number one, you can't be pulling punches. Number two, go at the king, right? Nobody says you have to be Destiny's friend. You can say like, oh, Destiny's bad because he leaked homemade porn. Destiny's bad because he audio recorded consensual sexual encounters without the consent of the people there. Allegedly, you can say that what Destiny did in his personal life is a complete mess, and you can still show up and try to trounce him on a debate topic. Now, in my opinion, what's going on, because I've heard this in the back channels, is that these characters who are large in and of themselves, who have established platforms, they don't want the mud of associating with Destiny at all. And number two, they don't want to give Destiny the debate fuel in order to revivify his career, because then they're going to get blamed if Destiny becomes, a socially relevant debate bro again. Now, it sounds like somebody in my chat, I forget who it was, but it was a veteran. They said that Steven is already looking to finish up Factorio, which is his autism game, because Steven has autism. He's looking to finish that up in the next 2 weeks, and then he's going to self-label himself I know that's redundant. He's going to self-label as the debate king, and then he's going to force all the newbies in order to come after him. Whether or not that's successful, we'll see. But it's also going to be funny when he's just like dogging on people, and they don't respond because they're scared. Like, dude, you have to be ready to get your teeth kicked in. I've had my teeth kicked in by DGG. It's a rite of passage in the Twitch and YouTube political debate scene. Sacred Snow says, hope restored for me at DGG side. By the way, I think this is the comment. Destiny said he's got a week or two to finish Factorio. Then he said he's branding himself as the world's greatest debater. It should, the content should flow. Grassroots says, have more of Xander Hall's money. Also, Sherry. Dude, like, everybody was making fun of Xander Hall for that, and I thought that was so based. Like, he's like, excuse me, LB. I'm not trying to scare you off. But I'm going to say a quote from that really, really funny, messed up drama where Xander Hall was like having a schizophrenic breakdown and became homicidal, where he's like, I wouldn't even shoot Keffels. I would beat her with the gun. Because that wasn't going to happen. Xander Hall was not actually going to commit a murder. At least I don't think so. That was so funny that I laughed so hard that I teared up a little bit. It was actually pretty funny. TikTok twinks. Yeah, I'm far more left than those dudes. True. He is good at debate, though. Yeah, you can hate Destiny for his personal life. He's a good debater. TikTok is for young people. Know your lane. It's true. I'm more boomer. I'm more veteran. Brandon Zero says, by the way, Connor, I rec that if you are gonna do a Destiny debate review, it would be better to cover Destiny and Piers Morgan. He did one yesterday and debate Michael Knowles and Dave Rubin. Good point. I'll pull that up first before the PF Jung one. I don't know who Xander Hall is. He's a Vash orbiter. Did I say Vash? Vosh. He's a Vosh orbiter. I don't know if you know who Vosh is. So, anyways, let's watch this 2-minute clip. Let me pull up you're right though. Let's do the Destiny Piers Morgan first before we do PF Jung, because that's probably going to be more spicy. Destiny, what was it? Piers Morgan, because they just did one yesterday, didn't they? 18 hours.
We need to kind of take a step back.
Ooh, a whole hour. That's nice. We will do PF Jung debate. We'll do woke right, but I don't know if we'll have time for all of it today. We'll figure it out. All right. Anyways, let's just watch this clip because Dave Smith, this man is cooking flawlessly done at Mehdi Hasan. I've never seen someone. No offense, Dave Smith. I wouldn't mind talking to Dave Smith because I think we could have like a fun combo. But Dave Smith I've never seen somebody mauled about a debate that happened like 2 months ago or like a month ago. I've never seen someone be like, I won the debate. But then they keep doing that like a month and a half later. It's like, bro, if you won the debate, then the first day you would have been like, all my haters suck. I won the debate. Eat a bowl of poop. Buzz off. And then you would just move on to your next series of content. But this guy has been capitalizing on the fallout of his debate with Douglas Murray and then his ensuing debate with this military guy for like a month and a half. I watched a PF Chang Destiny debate, but I can't remember what they talked about. It was supposed to be woke right. All right, quick shill. And then we'll watch this and then move into the Destiny content. Like the stream if you haven't liked the stream. Liking the stream is free. Also, engage in chat. There's plenty of really funny people who are having a good time in there. If you cannot stay for the whole stream, totally understand. People got lives. They got to work. They got to take care of their family. Watch the VODs on the Counterpoints channel. That's an easy way where if you don't have a lot of scratch, then you can give me AdSense revenue just by engaging with that, leaving comments, liking, and watching the content over there. And then if you do have money burning a hole in your pocket, of course, Grassroots Hegemon is the king, who is way too kind to the channel, but also please don't ever leave me. But if you have a super chat burning a hole in your pocket, either become a member or give us a super chat. It would be appreciated. Interested to hear your take on PF Jung. I really liked his stuff for a while, but he's a bit brain rotted over Israel and it's exhausting to hear over and over again. I'm with you, Kay. I'm with you. I disagree with him on the ZOG, Zionist occupied government thing, pretty viciously, but PF Jung and I would say we're friends. I'm comfortable saying that we're friends. So just because my friend has a cringe take doesn't mean that I hate him. Anyways, let's just watch this 2-minute clip real quick and then let's move into the Destiny content.
First of all, let me just deal with this credentials game that I know John and his friend Douglas Murray love to play these days about military, who knows more about this or that. John runs his mouth on a variety of topics. I've seen him talk about, in fact, just today he's talked about war crimes, international law, who's breaking international law. Last time I checked, John is not a lawyer. The International Criminal Court has indicted Netanyahu and Gallant for war crimes and crimes against humanity. The former Jewish president of the tribunals for Yugoslavia and Rwanda says Netanyahu should be indicted for war crimes and crimes against humanity. So let's just, we're going to play the expert game. John's not an expert on genocide. The actual genocide experts, the president of the International Association of Genocide Scholars says Gaza is a genocide. The leading Israeli scholars of the Holocaust, Omer Bartov at Brown, Amos Goldberg at Hebrew University, say Gaza is a genocide. John's not an expert on targeting terrorists.
He is, though. This is where I get frustrated. This guy, who's the original guy? I forget his name. I followed him on Twitter, but I forget his name. But all he's saying is he's not an expert. He's not an expert. He's not an expert. But if I remember correctly, this guy's like a professor or a think tank guy that exclusively talks about applications of military force. So Mehdi Hasan is just saying, I know all these other experts, and John isn't an expert on these topics, but he literally just listed what this guy does all day. So I don't think that's accurate.
Said a year ago, we're close to winning. He talked about not being allowed into Rafah games because John will lose, just like Douglas did on the Rogan show. Let's talk about substance. John said a year ago, we're close to winning. He talked about not being allowed into Rafah. Rafah has been destroyed. Have you looked at any pictures recently? It's flattened. You don't need to go there with the IDF to see that they flattened Rafah. They flattened most of Gaza, and they still have not won, quote unquote. It's absurd to say that Israel...
Wait, they haven't quote unquote won. They're committing a genocide, but also for 2 years, they're anyway. Let's see. I think there's some double think going on here.
Was held back. Is this the new stab in the back? This is the new bullshit defense. The former Israeli ambassador to the United States said recently, thank God Joe Biden was president while this was going on. He gave us everything we wanted. He never asked us to stop. He never asked for a ceasefire. America gave Israel everything it wanted, and they went ahead and decided to, you talk about killing Hamas commanders. They dropped two 2,000-pound bombs on October the 31st, 2023, on the Jabalia refugee camp, killing over 100 people to kill one guy, Ibrahim Biari, who wasn't even there, a Hamas commander. They killed over 100 people with two 2,000-pound bombs, which incinerate everyone within 100 square feet and damage everyone within 1,000 square feet. That is not targeted welfare. That is not proportionate. That is not legal.
I don't even know if that's true. Also, I'm going to call Dave Smith pusillanimous. Way to just have this guy go on a rant and be like, oh, you got owned, bro. If you want to understand like a point, then you need the rebuttal. Okay? So I wish the other guy got tagged so I could go check him out and show you who he is. But I think this is stupid. You're wrong, and you're not an expert. But as far as I know, this guy does study this almost daily and either works for a think tank or a university talking about applications of force. Philip Germain, you tagged me in something?
But all of us need to call it out. I'm thinking about the New York Times doing a gauzy profile a few...
Yeah, this is the clip that we did. Yep. I mean, that's what we just watched. All right, anyways, let's move on. But the point is, Dave Smith is still malding about a debate that he got his ass kicked 40 days ago. All right, let's do an intro. Let's get cracking. Let me stretch real quick. If you're not stretching, you need to stretch. It's good for you. If you're not drinking water, you need to drink water. It's good for you. If you're not lifting weights, you need to lift weights. It's good for you. All right. Let's set that up. Let's go full screen. And then let's get into the content. So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Connor. I'm a science fiction, political, and philosophy nerd, a Marine Corps and law enforcement veteran. I'm a never Trump Republican, and therefore I like to fight the far left and the far right with equal measure. We are live on the Valor Media Valor Media Network, and we're trying to make better content for better men to serve the Republic. At least that's my tagline that I'm going to use until they tell me to stop using it. Today, I have a special treat for you. I got two segments. We'll try to get through both. But I have Stephen Bunnell II, a liberal, controversial debate bro, who's going on to Piers Morgan in order to debate a bunch of very large alternative media conservative pundits. Should be fun. And then also, not also, we'll be pausing every few minutes in order to break down the arguments and also talk about it with our own insight. And then I would say, if we get to it, there's another conversation between Stephen Bunnell II, also known as Destiny, and P.F. Jung, who is a friend of mine, debating what the nature of the woke right. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get these gentlemen onto your screen, and let's see what they have to say today.
You see the way that people around Joe Biden used him for decades. All of these terrible things that happened, there was nobody home.
Let's release all the health records of President Biden, who is not president. I also want the health records of Donald Trump. Specifically, I want the records of his failed assassination attempt. You know, the bullet that grazed the ear.
With respect, you are beginning to sound like a mad conspiracy theorist.
There is an unbelievable layer of conspiracies here. The scandal is that the media ran in cahoots with the Democrat machine or the Biden machine or whatever you want to call it.
Trump is talking about Biden. The conservatives are talking about Biden. Everybody is talking about Biden. There is no scandal. There is no evidence of any scandal whatsoever. It's just more conservatives demonstrating again that they know nothing about medicine.
Oh man, I'm actually going to disagree with Destiny on this one. That's funny.
James Comey is a huge weirdo with artistic pretensions. Either Comey is the dumbest person on earth, or he knew what he was doing. And I want to be charitable. I think he kind of knows.
As a personal matter, everybody should feel nothing but genuine sympathy and concern for Joe Biden and his health. As a political matter, everybody should feel absolutely entitled to ask difficult questions. The Democratic Party, led by Joe Biden, said he was not only fit to be commander-in-chief, but to do it all again for another 4 years. Meanwhile, as Jake Tapper's book reports, he didn't recognize his friend and world-famous actor George Clooney. He forgot the names of even his closest and longest-serving aides. He was so frail, the staffers wanted to put him in a wheelchair and prevented even members of the cabinet from seeing him. The worries.
So LB asks, what do you know about science fiction, Connor? I love The Expanse TV. I love everything, but specifically Aliens, The Expanse, Predator, Avatar, Pandorum, Warhammer 40K, obviously. Star Wars is space fantasy, but I do like it. I'm not as much of a Trekkie as a lot of people. I actually do like the J.J. Abrams series. I know a lot of Trekkies hate them, but I like the first movie in particular. So, yeah, I love sci-fi. I effectively know a healthy chunk of sci-fi. But anyways, so this is where I'm going to disagree with Destiny. I'm just going to set this up as a preamble. Biden was already kind of old the first election cycle, 2020. And we were lucky as a community, as a country, that he kind of took a chill approach to the presidency and trusted his cabinet to execute his duties. I don't think that he was viable to run in 24. I think he kind of screwed over Kamala Harris by staying in the race for so long. And I'm trying to think of what else, but I do think that the Democratic Party, I think they swept for him for like a super long time, past the point that it was obvious that he shouldn't be in the run. And yeah, so if Steven says like, oh, there's no story here, I think he's wrong. But do you love Firefly enough? That's the question. Firefly and Serenity are my favorite sci-fi series. I don't know why I don't bring them up more, but Serenity I thought was like almost a perfect movie, especially for a low budget. I thought Serenity was pretty much perfect. And then the Firefly series, obviously like the makeup was bad. They had like a low budget. Some of the voice acting and extras were off, but the spirit of the show was so good that it just carried me through. It just charmed me so hard. Anyways, sorry, let's get back to it. But yes, science fiction is based.
About his cognitive decline go back to at least 2019. Well, now we know that he probably had cancer for a large part of his presidency, but somehow, inexplicably, perhaps even defying credibility, it was not detected, or certainly not in a way that was related to the American public. Democrats are rightly upset that so much attention is being absorbed by the last president and not the current one. But who exactly is to blame for that? Oh, right, yeah, it's them, isn't it? The people who said Joe Biden was fitter than a racehorse and smart enough for Mensa at a time when he should have been probably in a nursing home. It's very fair to ask, why should anybody trust them ever again? We're here to thrash it out. As the host of the Michael Knowles Show on Daily Wire, Michael Knowles, the streamer and commentator Destiny, Wajahat Ali, host of the Democracy-ish podcast, and the Rubin Report host Dave Rubin, whose Don't Burn This World tour is heading for Hungary, Israel, and Australia, but disappointingly, I have to say, not to the United Kingdom as yet. But I await.
I thought you had me banned already. Isn't that what happened? We tried to come again.
No, we haven't. We're all wokies are banned, but you're allowed in. Well, gentlemen, welcome to all of you. All been on Uncensored many times. Mike, let me start with you, Michael Knowles. It's a legitimate question. You know, I was appalled by the abuse, open mockery, and glee that greeted the news that President Biden has advanced aggressive cancer that's metastasized to his bones. Simply because on a human level, whether it was him or Donald Trump or anybody else, I just think if we've reached a point where the reaction to an elderly man potentially dying is treated with great glee, well, when they've served 50 years as a politician. I just think, sorry, I think it crosses the line. However,
Piers, I didn't see a lot of glee in the reaction. I'm not even just flacking for the GOP. From the established mainstream guys, I saw a lot of concern. Pray for Joe
I'm not talking
Biden
about
kind of
mainstream.
talk
I'm
from-
talking about general, like, people on social media. And I think it's indicative of where social media has gone. It's become, as we all know, because we've all got
A
big
sewer.
following, it's become a sewer and a cesspit.
Right.
And I just think it's actually, interestingly to what you just said, it's incumbent on people who are in the more mainstream, if you like, and I would include all of us here in a way. It's important for us, I think, to try and moderate that kind of stuff as best we can by leading by example. However, it's an important example. However, I'm just not buying this sequence of events. When I saw Ezekiel Emanuel on MSNBC talking about the fact that from his position as a very, very eminent oncologist, it just defies credibility. They just discovered this about Joe Biden, that in his estimation, they probably knew about this or should have known or must have known for maybe 4 or 5 years, even before he got elected before. Just to me, none of this adds up because I've had PSA tests. I mean, I'm 60, right? I've had them in my 50s. Most men do. And if you're the president of the United States, you're getting test after test after test after test. So what do we think we're dealing with here?
I think J.D. Vance exemplified the right reaction here, which is you say, look, we pray for the guy who has cancer, and we're all headed for the dust at some point. So let's not be too cruel about it. But also, don't allow our sympathy to distract us from the legitimate political problem that we all have a right to discuss, which is we were lied to. We were lied to by the White House doctor. That White House doctor should probably lose his medical license. Either way, if you're telling me he somehow didn't catch it until moments ago, he's a terrible doctor or he's a liar. Either way, he needs to face serious consequences. The White House staff lied. The media lied. The Jake Tappers of the world lied. And that's a very serious problem because we already had very little trust in our established institutions after COVID. Now you've got the public health officials, the White House doctor, and you've got the White House staff yet again lying to us. One big irony in all of this.
I'm going to ask, it's kind of rhetorical because I think the question that I'm going to ask, the way that I'm going to ask it, 80% of you are going to agree, and then the few people of you who disagree are not going to be persuaded. So it's kind of an unproductive question. But why, in retrospect, for the COVID pandemic, do we distrust establishment more? And what I mean by that is obviously there was the misinformation about efficacy. So what happened was there were Fauci and some other people who said it's 100% effective. It stops transmission. It does this. It does that. It'll wash your car. It'll go pick up the groceries for you. It'll tip your waitress, et cetera, et cetera. They exaggerated the efficacy of the COVID vaccine, right? That's true. However, what was going on was a global pandemic with a lot of misinformation floating around about it. They wanted to establish confidence in the vaccine, and based off of the trials, it didn't activate for 5G. They didn't inject nanites into us that now control our thoughts, as far as I know. They didn't kill, they didn't pandemic murder, 60% of the human population in order to save the planet. As far as I know, that could still happen in another decade. Seems very ineffective way to do it, by the way. And what happened was 1.1 million people died, right? So because we have the confused messaging and the back and forth and the lockdowns and then not the lockdowns, 1.1 million people in the United States died. And if you look at the secondary effects, there's of course vaccine side effects, which have hurt people, which have killed people. That did happen. But if you look at people who had vaccine side effects versus the people who went unvaxxed, then the people who went unvaxxed had more side effects, including permanent injury and death. And so, hooray. My wife came in to show me a text message letting me know that my son had a normal poop for the first time in a few days. So that's excellent news. So we're not going to the beach with my son having liquid poops. So my question to the people who are like, oh, we don't trust the medical establishment anymore. It's like, okay, but the medical establishment was saying that the vaccine was better than not having the vaccine. And that's true. Hooray, normal poop. Kingslayer says, because my governor made it illegal to go kayaking on your own, she also made it illegal to buy seeds. She also put people into COVID into nursing homes, dramatically increasing the numbers. Kingslayer, can I ask what state you live in? Because I know the Rust Belt, this could be a geographic bias. I know the Rust Belt got hit really hard, and they didn't have the economic capacity to get hit really hard. And then I also know that New York, they got really draconian and weird and did all sorts of obnoxious, stupid stuff. I lived in Florida. Maybe this is why I'm not traumatized by the government response to COVID anywhere near as much as the rest of you guys, because effectively Florida did like a very Darwinian libertarian approach where it was like, hey, if you want to lock down, lock down. If you don't want to lock down, don't lock down. That was Florida's response. Michigan, right, Rust Belt. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, simultaneously, the Rust Belt has enough democratic history that they tend to be very authoritarian with government. But what normally saves California and New York is they have really robust economies. So people tolerate the authoritarian bullshit against, they tolerate that because the economic prospects are so good. Whereas with the Rust Belt, it seems like you get the authoritarian bullshit, but you don't get the economic benefits. Kind of crazy. So I am sorry, Kingslayer, that does suck. Kay says, so I think the biggest issue was not just a conflicting messaging. It was people felt they were lied to because the government thinks they're stupid and can't make decisions for themselves. But Kay, is the government wrong? Like, are they wrong that the average person is stupid and can't make informed decisions? I don't think they are, right? As a critical thinking person, you should be able to figure it out one way or the other. But there are plenty of people who think they're critical thinkers, but they're not. LB says, yet those same people calling doctors going to hospitals and taking medicine wild. Yeah, there's a hypocritical element to it. I remember having to wear cloth masks and basic being out of shape and having a hard time breathing sucked. Yeah, I mean, it's annoying. No one's denying that it's annoying. Yeah. Grassroots for the 10. Thank you kindly, sir. In the places of people who are pooping their pants a half decade later, I was living 40 feet from Trump's best rally. We entirely ignored COVID. I'm a Pittsburgh person. Well, there you go. I'm not saying the government is the best decision maker. I'm saying that you have to balance entrenched interest and figure out who is bullshitting you and who is not. And in my opinion, Michael Knowles is 100% a bullshitter. Wowman542 says, NYC was uber weird in 2020. They told restaurants to build outdoor sheds for social distancing even months after the federal guidelines stopped doing it. Yeah, wow, man. One of the funniest things was seeing New York build outdoor seating like on the sidewalk so that people could eat outside so they would have more fresh air and be more socially distanced. But then it was cold. So then they built walls for the outdoor seating, but then it just became indoor seating again. All right, we'll get back to the content, but still.
This at a really low end political level. The Democrats, when Biden's decline became clear.
Hold on, LB, I want to push back just a little bit, okay? Sorry, we'll get to the content, I promise. But LB says, it's funny, only America had an issue with lockdowns and vaccines. I wonder why a country that can't read, do math, or know science knew better than doctors. Yeah, but LB, our economy bounced back faster than everyone because we're stupid. Because we were like, we want to work, so we're going to work. So if we get killed, we get killed. Oh, okay, Nang Un, I do parasocially love you. Give me a second. But LB... yeah, like we're stupid, but we also kept our economy flowing. So Nang Un says, Connor didn't say my name. I thought you parasocially loved me. Cry tear emoji. I do love you parasocially. All right. We do. Don't worry about it. All right. Sorry. Back to the content. Sorry for the ADD, but chat's having fun. They're popping off.
They decided to throw him out and replace him with Kamala Harris. And just knowing how life expectancy and metastatic cancer progresses, the Democrats would have had a much better chance getting Kamala Harris into the White House had they not instituted a coup d'etat on Joe Biden. Had they just been, I don't know, a little bit more straightforward about everything, they might have gotten what they wanted, but their deceit did them in.
Yeah, which I mean, whichever way you look at this, it just stinks, the sequence of events, doesn't it? I mean, does anybody believe that they have suddenly discovered about a recent president of the United States, that he's got aggressive cancer in this manner? I mean, the White House said today, as Kamala said, the last time that not the White House, but Biden's people have come out and said the last time he had a PSA test was 2014 for fear it would be raised and raise concerns. I just don't believe that. Why would a man in his 70s not have another PSA test for 10, 11 years?
So I know we love conspiracy theories on this show, but let me just say first and foremost, as a father of a stage 4 cancer survivor, my daughter had a full liver transplant. When I left my daughter, she was perfectly healthy, 2 years old, 6 years ago, and then she had some bumps. My wife took her to the emergency room, and then they found out that she had stage 4 cancer. That's how it happens. So for anyone who is suffering from cancer, anyone who has a lost one, who died from cancer, sometimes it creeps up. That's number one for people to know, and hopefully people will know more about cancer as this Trump administration has cut 31% of cancer research in the first 100 days. Just want people to know that. Hopefully no one has to go through this. We went through it. Joe Biden right now has stage 4 cancer that has metastasized to the bones.
Sorry, with respect, Mujahid, let me stop you. You're distracting. You're very good at distracting. We're not a show that
no, not at all. I'm trying to inform your audience.
I'm not a show that loves conspiracy theories. I love talking about the reality behind conspiracy theories. Often conspiracy theories, as we've discovered in the last few years, turn out to be correct. So I'm prepared to give everything a fair hearing.
That is not true.
Well, they sometimes they do, right? Some conspiracy theories turn out to be true. And then the people who call them conspiracy theories sound like idiots. I don't like promoting wild, nonsensical conspiracy theories. I don't think it's a conspiracy theory to have expected a president of the United States in his 70s to have had a basic test that all men over the age of about 55 are encouraged to have on a regular basis. I don't believe them. And I think that is
enough. So
and if it turns out to be that
you might agree with me on this.
Go on.
You actually might agree with me on this. So here, let me just finish. Joe Biden is a very old man. Breaking news. He's 82 years old. I agree with you that Joe Biden should not have run or even announced that he was run for president, right? He was supposed to be a one-term president. I believe Joe Biden did immense damage to the Democratic Party and Kamala Harris by announcing at a very late stage that he wouldn't run, and he was pressured not to run. I think he made a huge mistake. He's 82 years old. Now, I'm all for fair and balance. And I don't know, I'm going to take my Republican counterparts, my MAGA counterparts out there at their word right now. Let's have fair and balance. I'm all here. Let's release all the public records. Let's release all the health records of President Biden, who is not president. Also, let's also focus on the man who's currently president, Donald Trump. He's the oldest person to ever be elected president. He's about to turn 79 years old. I want the health records of Joe Biden. I also want the health records of Donald Trump. Specifically, I want the records of his failed assassination attempt. You know, the bullet that grazed the ear. That is very traumatic for anybody, especially a 78-year-old man. Really?
So Gen X says, what does no daylight kid mean? So Gen X, my guess, just because chat is once again more interesting than the people that we watch, because all of you guys have 3,000 IQ. Okay. So what does no daylight kid mean? In my opinion, although the other chatter can tell us what they meant by it, it was that there's an expectation within media now that you are out and about all the time. You're talking to people, shaking hands, kissing babies, doing podcasts, all that kind of stuff. And it seemed like that Biden in particular kind of hung out and wanted to win based off of name recognition and also the country kind of doing okay. And then it also seems that with Kamala, her media and social blitz was too little too late. Donald Trump was effectively on the campaign trail 2 years into his first presidency. He got elected in 16, right? Well, in 18, he started doing, in-person rallies again. And so he was able to get the on-the-ground excitement about his base up and running very early, whereas it seemed like Kamala only hit like a media and canvassing blitz in like the last 90 days of the run. Now, that's partially Joe Biden's fault, in my opinion, because of the way that they ran his campaign and him dropping out so late. But I also think it was a mistake for Kamala and Waltz to not hit the ground running 6 months out from the election. They should have effectively been throwing Trump-style campaign rallies and going on every long-form podcast possible 6 months out to the election, because that's the new game. The new game is appealing to broad swaths of people. In my opinion.
Release all the health records. Number one. Number two.
Wow, you're sounding
Donald
like
Trump,
a man.
his health.
Sorry, Vajaya. You are sounding
50-50.
With
Let's do
respect,
50-50.
With respect, you are beginning to sound
2 years, dude. You need decades. And LB, so LB says you need 2 years to run for president. You need the name recognition of either a minor, major celebrity, and or you need to be endorsed by a major political dynasty. Trump has become a political dynasty through being a celebrity first, and the Bushes and the Clintons have negative brands associated with them. But if they endorse you, then you get the kind of name recognition necessary in order to do a run. So I could not, if I had $1 billion in order to spend on my presidential campaign run, I don't think that I could be president in 2 years. I think you almost need a decade. That's why Marco Rubio is Secretary of State right now, is because he's trying to up his political bona fides. That's why JD Vance is no offense to JD, but kind of a snake who is willing to take the vice presidency, is because he knows that he's going to get the name recognition of being Donald Trump's VP, for better or for worse. So yeah, it's not 2 years. It's like a decade.
sound like a mad conspiracy theorist. Dry skin, deeper wrinkles, and crepiness are just a few of the visible signs of aging. Also, I'm told. Fortunately, today's show is sponsored by One Skin. Their topical supplements are designed to help your skin feel.
Wait.
You don't think he was shot in the ear? You don't believe that? What are you getting at?
I agree he was
what
shot in the ear.
What mad conspiracy are you pursuing?
I agree he was shot in the ear. We do not have the health records. Those health records were not made public. I agree he was shot in the ear. I was on your show. He was shot. He survived. Release the public health records of Donald Trump. Release the public health records of Joe Biden. I want to remind everyone.
So hold on, LB, I'm going to disagree with you slightly, okay? LB says Biden effed it up. We agree there. Also, Kamala was a weak candidate. I agree. She's a coastal Californian with an annoying laugh. I found that endearing after a certain part because she was just like, yeah, I have an annoying laugh. Deal with it, which it was absolutely the right tact for her. She needed to embrace her cringe, in my opinion. She's not a firebrand. Agreed. Tim Walz is a far stronger candidate. I agree, but he also seemed like a deer in headlights when he debated J.D. Vance. What I was expecting and what I wanted was I wanted Tim Walz to come out and be like, J.D. Vance is a psychopath. He loves the dissident right. He does apologia for Trump's worst policies. He shifted almost 180 degrees from who he was 5 years ago. He's a tech bro backed by Peter Thiel. He's a monstrous a-hole for XYZ ABC reason. And as a result, he's kind of a dickhead. But what Tim Walz did instead was like, the adults need to be in the room and we need to make sound decisions and we need to do this and we need to do that. And I just think we could really come together as a country and And by the way, I'm not saying that can't work, but that wasn't the right time for that. But at that point, Trump and Vance were on the warpath and they were calling everybody left of themselves, rhino, Democrat, commie, revolutionary, evil pieces of garbage. So when Walz tried to reconcile with those people, it just made it look like he was weak against his political ideological enemies. And so any fire behind Walz burned out. That's how I felt about it. Christian Blair says, stop advocating for an assault weapons ban. It's a DOA in the Senate and you likely lose, never Trumpers. Yes. This is me. Christian Blairis, you're talking about me. Anyways, sorry to break it to you, Tim Walz ain't that guy. Yeah, I know. That's why I wanted Mark Kelly. That's who I wanted. I wanted Mark Kelly, and I want Pete Buttigieg to stop being gay. And it's not a dig at my gay friends. I love my gay friends, but I just don't think a gay man can win a general election. So if Pete Buttigieg could stop being gay, and if that astronaut, whoever I just said, Mark Kelly, if Mark Kelly could stop hating guns, that would be great. Is that true, though? Josh Shapiro rocketed up the list, and he holds those beliefs, also enjoys popular support in decision-maker state. I know. But Josh Shapiro, in my opinion, I don't know. There's something about him. He's like too New York. He's too Northeastern. He's too Yankee. Anyways, I could be wrong. That's my opinion. So take it with a grain of salt.
This man to be elected as president right now, Donald Trump. Who did I say was cover up? I'm saying, let's be honest. I'm taking you at your word.
I was trying to establish. Are you saying that you are agreeing with your MAGA counterparts that there was a cover up on Joe Biden's ill health?
People do not trust the establishment. People do not trust the Democratic establishment. People do not trust the Republican establishment.
Corey Peltzman said what I wanted to say, but I was too polite to say it.
Americans to be informed. I agree with you. Joe Biden is a very old man. He's 82 years old. I agree with you. He should not run again. I agree with you that Democratic establishment probably hit his decline. We saw it in real time. But what I'm also seeing right now is unfair and unbalanced coverage because President Biden ain't president. Donald Trump is president. 78 years old, about 79, has never been on a bike, talks about groceries like he invented the word. He's brought it back.
Well, you're steaming
Piers,
off.
I'm sorry.
Well, Jai, listen, you're going off on one of your you're very good at distracting. You're very good at distracting.
He is distracting. And again, there was that guy like Ken or whatever that dude's name was earlier, who's like, oh, you don't like Hasan Piker? That means that you endorse the Gazan genocide. And it's like, no, that's not what that means. We talked about how that's whataboutism. This guy is engaged in whataboutism. He's saying, yes, Biden's bad. Yes, Biden's mental health declined. Yes, Biden might have had all these health issues. But let's talk about the current president of the United States. But that's not what he was brought in to debate. He was brought in to debate the health cover-up of Joe Biden. Now, this can be effective for people who are political tribalists who just want to say, yes, but the other side bad. But for me, it's not particularly compelling. I think that if you want to project strength, you have to fight on the ground that's chosen by the debate platform. Because if you're running away from the topic at hand, it seems like you don't have that good of argumentation.
But let me bring in.
Oh, and sorry, I need to use the restroom and grab some water. I'm going to let these competent, intelligent, rhetorically gifted, beautiful people dance for your amusement. I'll try to be back in 120 seconds. I'll do my best.
Trump has fallen asleep three
Enjoy
times
the chair
publicly
react.
in the past 3
Donald
weeks.
Trump,
He's 79 years old.
Donald
You
Trump
guys
has
don't
the
care?
energy, as everybody knows, whether you love him or hate him, he's got the energy of a 30-year-old, right? So what? Let's just not go down.
Tell him to ride a bike.
Yeah, Joe Biden.
Tell him to ride a bike.
Joe Biden was basically
Biden rode a
walking
bike last
zombie.
week. Tell him to ride a bike.
All right, let me bring in Dave Rubin.
Tell
Dave,
Donald Trump to ride a bike.
All right, which I gave you a good hearing. Dave Rubin.
Well,
I think
Piers,
the point here, Dave, isn't it? It's just about the fact that there is a general belief, fueled by the Jake Tapper, Alex Thompson book that's coming out now, which many people look at them and say, well, you should have blown the whistle before. They kind of admit that. Both of them have admitted that, so I think credit to them for doing that. But what the book seems to reveal is what many of us said very publicly many times. Joe Biden was unfit to be president of the United States, cognitively, physically, any other way you care to strip it. That matters. And the reason the cancer story now matters is if it turns out that they knew he had prostate cancer, which was metastasizing, we don't know when. And, you know, to your point with Jaha, I'm very glad that your daughter's okay. And I understand sometimes cancer comes on very, very fast. But she is not the president of the United States. When you're president of the United States, Dave, you get incredible medical treatment and you get tested for just about everything all the time, precisely to ensure that you are fit and able to run the country. So I just cannot believe that a man who was president of the United States in his 70s did not have another PSA test after 2014 for one of the most prevalent cancers that affects elderly men. I just don't buy it. And if they're lying about it, then a lie was perpetrated on the American people, which is, I think, pretty serious.
Of course. First off, Piers, I want to say it's good to see you. I know we've been hitting each other a little bit on Twitter lately, but it's always fun to be on the show. As long as we're doing medical diagnoses here, I mean, I think we just saw a prime example of a symptom of Trump derangement syndrome. When someone is asked a question about what's wrong with Joe Biden's cognitive ability and now his metastatic cancer.
Oh, he said the words. He said the words. He said Trump derangement system. Whoa! He owned in the marketplace of ideas. Did you guys hear that? He said Trump derangement syndrome. Owned. And this is sarcastic, just in case you can't tell. Oh my God, I hate the phrase Trump derangement syndrome. There's never been a thought-terminating cliche more devastating than Trump derangement syndrome. It's the stupidest, the most dumb, the dumbest, the dumberest. It's the dumberest statement in the world. Trump does bad things. Trump is an idiot. Trump is an a-hole. Trump has, honestly, man, this is what's crazy to me. Okay. Dave Rubin, gay man, married, adopted kids, conservatives gave him shit for adopting his kids. Okay, that's fine. You still agree with conservatives on some point. That's totally cool. How do you look at Donald Trump, like the HIV and AIDS epidemic affected the gay community horribly during the 1980s. And effectively what Ronald Reagan and the conservatives did is they ignored the pandemic to the tune of millions of dead people. Now, you can say that's because of hard drug use. You can say that's because of promiscuous sex. You can say all those things, but that doesn't change the fact that the gay community effectively lost. How many people died? Let's take a look at how many people died in the HIV pandemic of the 1980s. How many people died from the HIV epidemic in the United States? About 700,000 people have died of HIV/AIDS in the United States since the beginning of the HIV. So that's almost 1 million people. Okay? Almost 1 million people. 750,000 people died as a result of HIV/AIDS. So, how many people will die from PEPFAR cuts? This is a Republican program, by the way. This was started by George Bush. A 90-day PEPFAR funding pause and associated service disruptions could result in over 100,000 excess HIV-related deaths over a year in sub-Saharan Africa. So we're talking about killing 100,000 people a year as a result of the PEPFAR cuts. And if we extend this out to 2030, we're expected to kill 3 million people through negligence. So how do you, as a gay man whose community was devastated in the 1980s by the HIV epidemic, how do you just realize that 700,000 people died as a result of people ignoring the HIV epidemic, and we're about to kill 3 million more, and you just shrug your shoulders? And I'll tell you how. It's because you get a fat paycheck. That's why. That's why he doesn't give a shit. It's because conservatives pay him in order to be the token gay man who sides with them, who used to be a liberal. And so as a result, he can look at 3 million people dying in the next 5 years, and he can just go, meh. He can go, 5 million dead. They're in sub-Saharan Africa. Who gives a shit? Which is so insanely evil that I don't even understand how you could possibly keep these things in your head unless you were a massive piece of shit. I actually can't. I think you're a bad person. If you look at, there were people in East Africa who we were providing medications for 12 cents a day, and some of them were kids. And we stopped that funding, and at least a few dozen of those kids died, and we know their names, right? So we know their names. They're real people. This is in the background, right? This is in the background of all our minds because dying from HIV isn't as crazy as war or terrorism. But I want you to think about that. 3,000 people died on 9/11. Probably 1 million people died in total in the war on terror between Iraq and Afghanistan and the rise of ISIS. And that has been, at least in my brain, that's been front and center in my brain as a threat for 2 decades. I have been thinking about jihadist terrorism for 2 decades, but I don't think about HIV at all. But HIV has killed, the 90-day pause is going to kill 100,000 people. Dave Rubin doesn't give a shit. And then in the next 5 years, I think the reason why they pushed it out to 2030 is because since Trump won and took office in 2025, that means that we are not going to restore PEPFAR probably until the end of his office. So they're counting it out to 2030. So 3 million people just got wiped out. What a dickhead.
We start talking about Donald Trump. So that's one issue. As to everything else you said, Noel's absolutely hit it on the head. There is an unbelievable layer of conspiracies here because either we are to believe that Joe Biden, the president of the United States, the 82-year-old president, former president of the United States, that his doctor was completely incompetent at every level, meaning he didn't catch what is now very, very advanced, very easy to catch prostate cancer. As you said, you're 60 years old. You've had these PSA tests.
Yeah.
I checked on Grok this morning.
Somebody said, "Oh, nice Grok reference, nice Twitter AI shill." But somebody said that they stopped doing PSA tests after 70. I don't know why. Do they just stop caring about prostate cancer after 70? That's actually kind of scary. But I'd love for somebody in chat to explain that to me.
Morning, Grok recommends that men usually at about 45 years old, and that's what ChatGPT says as well. And you can talk to virtually any doctor that says that. Yeah, see, this is the kind of obfuscation that you guys do with everything. We all know that men somewhere in their 40s and 50s.
Up with white genocide?
We all know that men in their 40s and 50s should be getting this test annually. So,
yeah, and liberals, you got to stop doing this. The liberals and progressives. I understand that this might hit on Blue Sky. This doesn't hit anywhere else. Where he's like, "Oh, Grok, are you talking about white genocide?" Dude, I'm sorry, I'm gonna do it. This guy just pissed me off. Okay. White South African farm murders. This is where liberals and lefties playing footsie with the far leftists is psychotic. Okay. There are racist murders in South Africa, some of whom are absolutely horrifying, where because there's racial grievances in South Africa, there are Black Africans who hate the Boers, who are the Dutch and English settlers of South Africa. They come onto their properties and they torture and murder men, women, and children. Some of the stories about like old people getting beaten, old people getting murdered, old people getting tortured, young people getting tortured, kids being tortured and drowned in their own bathtub. It's some of the most like harrowing, disgusting shit you've ever heard in your entire life. Look at this. These are South African farmers under attack, rising killings. I don't know if this kind of looks like it could be the South African militia. I'm not sure. But there's guys who are using jamming backpacks like that guy had for drones. They're using that to jam cell phone signals, and then they're cutting the power to the farms, and then they're approaching the farms and they're murdering everybody inside it. So regardless of whether or not you want to say, oh, this isn't statistically as relevant as actual genocide. It's not as statistically relevant as Palestine. It's not as statistically relevant as I'm trying to think of like another example as like Ukraine or some shit. The fact that you're like, ha 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 ha, people getting murdered, lol. It's like, dude, what's wrong with you? They don't test because due to the potential for false positive overdiagnoses and unnecessary treatment. Jesus. Bo Dickerson. So I read the stopping PSA. It's basically if you don't have cancer at 70, the rate of growth will be slow. If you do get it, also the treatment is potentially much worse dangerous than cancer. Interesting. Christian Blair says, it's not a genocide and therefore no mass graves. Both lies told by Trump. It's not a genocide. 50% of those farm murders are Black Africans. Most of those pics are AI, bro. No, they're not. No, they're not. Don't do this to me. So let's do South African murder rate 2024, sure. 42 per 100,000. So this is as bad. This is like twice that of Mexico, I think. Mexico murder rate 2024. 25. So this is like 40% higher than Mexico. And Mexico is borderline like a narco civil war. So listen, if you want to say it's like most of the murders aren't racially motivated, blacks get killed too, blah, 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 that's fine. Just don't laugh about people getting murdered. That's my request to you. Demographics of farm murders in South Africa. A check of Trump's false claims about white genocide in South Africa. Let's go ahead and read your lib media shenanigans. Johannesburg. Following is a look at some of the claims made by President Donald Trump about the alleged persecution of South Africans' white minority. Trump made several false statements and misrepresentations, some facts during a contentious Oval Office meeting. Ramaphosa tried to rebuff the assertions, but was frequently interrupted by Trump, who repeated the claims. Trump had a staff play a video consisting mostly of years-old clips of inflammatory speeches by South African politicians that have been circulating on social media. Among the claims contradicted by the evidence, there is no genocide of white farmers in South Africa. This conspiracy theory has been propagated by some fringe groups of white South Africans since the end of apartheid in 1994 and has been circulating in global far-right chat rooms for at least a decade with the vocal support of Trump's ally, South African-born Elon Musk. Supporters of the theory point to murders of white farmers in remote rural parts of the country as proof of a politically orchestrated campaign of ethnic cleansing rather than ordinary violent crime. They accuse the government of being complicit in the farm murders either by encouraging them or at least turning a blind eye. The government strongly denies this. South Africa has one of the world's highest murder rates with an average of 72 a day in a country of 60 million people. Most victims are black, but that's all. Most of the population is black, right? South African police records 26,232 murders nationwide, in which 44 were linked to farming communities. Of those, 8 of the victims were farmers. Okay, I'm okay with accepting that. Data collected by white farmers themselves also does not support the notion of a genocide. Afrikaner Farmers Unions, the TLUSA, has counted 1,400 approximately white farmers murdered since 1990, or an average of 40 a year, far less than 1% of total murders. The High Court in Western Cape Province ruled that the claims of white genocide were clearly imagined and not real. Okay. I'll take it. What I would categorize, though, okay, I'm going to ask you. I'm a gun-toting progressive based. Well, not the progressive part, but the gun-toting part based. South Africa has always had a massive murder rate. There are actual major no-go areas for law enforcement due to the rise of heavily armed gangs. He also could be talking about the conspiracy that whites are getting genocided in the U.S. Many of these gangs target farmers, both black and white. Oops, they aren't, but after farmers in my previous chat is a typo that's not supposed to be there. Let me take a look at that, Kingslayer. But the courts full of ANC members who chant "kill the Boer" found that it's not white farmers who are getting killed, so it's not happening. So I'm going to split the difference. You guys know me; I'm a centrist. Okay, I'm a centrist. All right. What I'm going to say is that 40 people per year. Let's do this. 40 people a year. What is the white population in South Africa? 5 million people. So there's no way that 40 people per year getting murdered is going to turn into, well, and by the way, like, of course, like if a civil war breaks out, if the ANC adopts the, pro-genocidal rhetoric, et cetera, not that they haven't in the past, right? But the point is that 40 per year is not going to result in the evaporation of 5 million people, right? And so what I would say needs to be called out is ANC members who cheer on the murders is cringe, gross, and disgusting. I think that racialized murder, where you're torturing people, beating people, men, women, and children, et cetera, because of their immutable characteristics, is horrifying. I also even think that basic murder is obviously gross, disgusting, repulsive, should be incarcerated, should be punished by the government. And that's all I would say. Just don't laugh about murder. That's it. Okay. If you guys don't laugh about murder, then I won't propagate the white genocide narrative, and we'll call it square. Let's call it square. I won't call it a genocide. You don't laugh at murder. Boom. 1, 2, 3, team.
Either his doctor was completely negligent and hid that, but it's not just that, because he was also either completely negligent or a buffoon or a criminal when it came to what was going on with Joe Biden cognitively. Why is it, Piers? I'm not from the future. I don't have a DeLorean or a flux capacitor or anything else. Why is it that in 2019, I was doing videos, you can find them online, of Joe Biden's cognitive ability? It's because everyone could see it right in front of our face, and they told us not to see. So there's multiple layers of conspiracy here. And as it pertains to Jake Tapper, and Alex Thompson is the guy that I guess co-wrote the book, and the poor guy, he's going into all these interviews with Jake, and he's just like, ooh, I hope they don't ask me a question. It's embarrassing, because the scandal is not just that doctor, she's a doctor, right? Dr. Jill Biden, and the insiders were hiding this. And what did Biden even know what he had or anything else? The scandal is that the media ran in cahoots with the Democrat machine or the Biden machine or whatever you want to call it. So there's multiple layers of a medical scandal, because there's more than one issues there, but there's multiple layers of, I would say, a cultural scandal, which pertains to how the White House released information and how the media used that information or hid that.
My only issue, I don't have any problem with calling out the sweeping for Joe Biden's mental or physical decline. I have no problems with pointing that out, but it's just rich coming from Dave Rubin, who twists himself into pretzels in order to justify the Trump administration. I have no problems. I have no problems with you calling out sweeping. I have no problems with you calling out perverse incentives. I have no problems with you calling out political tribalism. That's perfectly fine. I like it when that stuff is called out. It's just that Dave Rubin is the same. Mega Zero says, also Hughes versus Benjamin case got cited in a community note. Okay, interesting. It's so weird that MAGA says Democrat instead of Democratic. I say it reflexively. I say the Democrat Party, and my wife is like, ew, cringe. Nobody inside the Democratic Party says Democrat Party. But I think it's weird. But whatever. You know, I do my best to say Democratic now just because I understand that it hits the ear wrong for people who support the Democratic Party.
That information.
I agree.
David, were those the videos that Russia paid you to make, or was that your original independent thinking?
Okay, let me do this, because you do this every time I'm on the show. You do know that the Department of Justice closed the case, and you do know that I'm talking about it right now, so that has nothing to do with me. But
and I would add a third. I would add a third.
Buddy.
Do you know? I don't give a fuck. So let's just move back to the debate.
Nice. Okay. Dave Rubin is a part of Tenant Media. Tenant Media was a Russian psychological operation in order to pay Benny Johnson, Dave Rubin, Lauren Southern, and Tim Pool a bunch of money. It seems that on a cursory look that Lauren Chen was the only person who knew what was going on and knew that they were taking vast swaths of Russian money. But those other people, Benny Johnson, Dave Rubin, Lauren Southern, and Tim Pool, they were getting paid incredible amounts of money in order to produce the content that they were already producing, which was then getting reused by a YouTube channel that wasn't getting good metrics. They were told that it was like some philanthropic billionaire who just wanted to like diversify the narratives within alt media and public media. What happened to Chen? She lawyered up. She shut up, and she stopped producing content, probably out of fear that, number one, she's going to get prosecuted, but then number two, that if she slips up and says something public that's incriminating, then it's going to incentivize the government to come after her. So that's what happened. So Dave Rubin was a part of Tenant Media, but so far there hasn't been any ironclad evidence revealed that shows that Tim, Dave, Lauren Southern, or Benny Johnson knew what was going on. Now, that being said, they did say some wildly cringe shit while they were getting paid by Tenant Media. Sultan Al-Fahim says $1 million. And I'm trying to say it's similar to 500 cigarettes. Grassroots says, as someone who frequently says, I don't give a fudge in meetings, sorry, Connor's mom. That's okay. That's okay. Lauren used to not be cringe, but Lauren found out that if you pandered to conservative boomers, then you could make piles of cash. So she stopped being a human being with opinions, and she started being a boomer propaganda mirror just to say whatever conservative boomers wanted to hear. And therefore she made shit piles of cash, but she also lost her soul.
Destiny.
So you weren't paid by Russia. Okay.
Look,
good to know.
if you want to ask him on your own show and ask him those questions again and again, go and do it on your own show, would you? Let me bring in Destiny. Destiny.
Fair enough.
Destiny, I do think this matters. Do you?
I'm going to be honest. I haven't followed the news recently, and I lose track of this sometimes. Right now, who's the president? Is it Trump or is it Biden? Because every single day I turn the news on, Trump is talking about Biden, the conservatives are talking about Biden, everybody's talking about Biden. It feels like that is the only thing that these people can ever talk about, because they're trying to take away attention from Trump's disastrous econ policy,
there was a major
from the utter
involving
failures
Biden,
that he's
like 3
running
days
into
ago.
over and over and over again with all of the courts, with the insane arguments that they're putting in front of the Supreme Court, trying to get rid of
The Silver Jacket Man for $10 says, not to be a history boy, but we've done this frequently for old presidents. Reagan was legit sundowning on his second term. Edith Wilson basically enacted Weekend at Bernie's with a comatose Woodrow. Yeah, old people leave the country and then they have mental issues. And I do remember that there were some pretty strong clips of Reagan losing it. But at the same time, Nixon was sharp as a tack. Actually, in interviews after his presidency, he was still sharp as a tack. But the Reagan Alzheimer's in office. But the hope, though, is that we elect them while they're sharp, and then if they experience a medical issue, then we kind of, move them to the side. And that's why they have a cabinet, right? It is because they can execute the duties and intent of the president, even if the president himself is incapacitated. That's why he has a vice president. So it is frustrating. It has happened before, but also we can all agree it's not ideal, right? We can all agree it's not ideal. I think that's obvious. Silver Jacket Man, and thank you for the donation. Grassroots Hegemon is fighting for his life over here. But I parasocially love Grassroots for supporting the channel so aggressively. And Silver Jacket Man, thank you for supporting the channel as well with your money. It does mean a lot. Honestly, it does. When you guys chip in, Grassroots is obviously a phenomenal human being, and I appreciate him so much for supporting the channel so aggressively. However, when you guys chip in, when Gen X does it, when Dr. Zayas does it, when Silver Jacket Man does it, when Christian Valeris does it, when all you guys do it, I know that not all of y'all are rich. I know that you're working your asses off. I know that you're paying bills. I know that you're surviving. I know that you're getting through school. So when you chip in a $5 or a $10 here, it's greatly appreciated. It really is. Thank you kindly. LB says, Nixon was a gosh darn criminal, so who cares? It's great that he signed in the EPA and other acts, but F Nixon. Well, the reason why I like Nixon is because he has these really astute interviews after he was out of office. And what he did, as far as I can tell, as far as the documentary that I watched, is that his people did the burglary, and then he intimately involved himself in the cover-up after the fact. And then not just that, but Nixon, he was okay getting his hands dirty. He was okay being in the intel establishment, in the military establishment. He was okay getting his hands dirty in Vietnam. He was okay doing all sorts of crazy stuff in reference to the actual war and intel and all that kind of stuff. He was just like a really crazy geopolitical operator. But if you watch his conversations, he's wildly intelligent. And I would rather see a wildly intelligent, well-read political operative be at the upper echelons of government rather than an ignoramus. I would take 30 years of Nixon over 4 years of Trump. I'll put it that way. Grassroots for the 10. Thank you. Roman Millennial was actually a good channel for really interesting, usually conservatives, but not always. Lauren Chen used to operate in the space that Kraut does. Excellent. She wasn't always this. Agreed. Roaming Millennial, infinitely better than Lauren Chen. I agree. Philip for 10. Nothing witty to say. Just appreciate getting to listen to you while I game on my days off. Well, thank you, Philip. I appreciate the donation. Honestly, obviously, Grassroots, I parasocially love you. Thank you for all the support. But all you guys who chip in 5 or 10 when you can, it does mean a lot to me on a personal level. So thank you. Listen, anyone who takes an oath to uphold the Constitution turns around and says, if the president does it, it's not a crime, it's a problem. Now you can call that soy if I like it. I call it patriotism. No, I don't think that's soy. I don't think that's soy at all. I'm a constitutionalist as well. I think that you swear an oath. An oath is a promise. If you break that oath, you should be known as an oath breaker. You should be treated like shit because you made a promise and you broke your promise. I'm with you, LB. That's not soy. All right. Anyway, sorry. Back to the content.
Things like birthright citizenship, but for some reason we're talking about Biden again. Also, it's no surprise the conservatives are once again. There is no scandal. There is no evidence of any scandal whatsoever. It's just more.
I feel like this is shilling, but that's okay. I'll take notes.
Conservatives demonstrating again that they know nothing about medicine.
There's no evidence of a scandal.
No, you don't need to explain anything while I'm giving my answer to Piers' question. You say the man wasn't competent to be president. I'm curious. Can you show me a single time when Joe Biden sat down and had EOs brought to him and explained to him that he'd never seen before, like we see Trump sign on an almost daily basis? One example of that.
Well, they didn't bring them to Joe Biden because an auto pen
Exactly. You have no examples of that. No, you have no examples of that. Donald Trump is worse. Donald Trump is worse. That's great, but you can see videos of Biden explaining
me ask you a question.
Well, hold on, let me finish my answer. For all of these people that are so concerned about Biden's health, everybody got so offended when Elon Musk was asked about his ketamine abuse. So they said we had no right into the minds, the drug use, or the medical records of people that might be involved in major parts of the government, that he was involved in dismantling huge parts of the government. He was the president's right-hand man. Just right there, we just heard another pivot, another abdication of responsibility. The reality is conservatives know nothing about medicine. All of you guys on here are saying it's totally common to test for prostate cancer past 50. It's not. Past 70 is not recommended. Believe it or not, and I know in the movies and in the TV shows, it seems like you can test for every single thing at every point in time. You can't test for every single thing at every point in time. You don't do that because you get a lot of false positives.
How long does that PSA test take you? When you do that PSA test annually,
it doesn't matter.
How long does that take you? Is that a big problem?
It literally takes 3 minutes.
Over the age of 70, you do not test men for prostate cancer. It's just not recommended. You can't test for every
It is if you're the president of the United States and you've already had a test in 2014.
From ordinary human conditions? No, of course not. You can't test for every single disease at every single point of your life. Unfortunately, you just can't do that.
Okay, Michael, let me bring you back in here. I think, look, it's the conversation's been very revealing. But Jar hat on massive distraction technique and Destiny basically saying old people shouldn't have tests that might save their lives.
Just to be clear, go to Google, look up, when do you test for prostate cancer? You don't test every. You can Google it right now. Put it on the program. Everybody can type it in the
program.
Are you arguing that they shouldn't have tested Joe Biden, who now has metastatic
you literally have a blood test.
Cancer in his bones? Are you arguing they shouldn't have tested
It's a blood test. I bet the president of the United States probably has a weekly blood test. Probably. I'm guessing.
What do you think a blood test is? Do you think you can test for every single possible thing in your blood?
It's so easy to test for PSA. Your PSA literally is one thing. It's easy. If you're struggling with sleepless nights and exhausting days, you might want to try Beam's Dream.
Oh my God.
I want to move on from this to James Comey talking of wild conspiracy theories. Because call me bonkers, Michael Knowles. I don't mind what you call me. But the idea that a man who was the director of the FBI, the top lawman in America, was wandering along a beach and saw some seashells with the numbers 8647. And he had absolutely no idea before putting it on his Instagram that this might be interpreted as meaning a desire to kill President Trump.
Listen, I'm just going to brace for impact. 86. So the first time I bumped into the term 86 was in the restaurant industry, and we would call out 86 when we ran out of something. So 86 romaine, 86 mayo, 86 ranch, whatever. As you're making food throughout the evening, you'll run out of an ingredient sometimes. And it's kind of the job of the managers to not run out of an ingredient, but you call out 86 in the kitchen in order to let everybody know that that ingredient is no longer available. I've also heard bartenders use 86 in the context of cutting off a customer. Okay, so if somebody is wasted beyond their means, and so as a result, they shouldn't be driving, they can barely walk, then you can 86 a customer, which means cutting off the customer from getting any more booze. That's the first two contexts that I used it. Also, I think in law enforcement, bear in mind, it's been like a half decade, maybe longer since I've been a cop, so I kind of forget it. But Lake County signals and codes 86. So 10 codes, 86 is lost property. But what's the signal? 86. I swear to God, there's like a cancel in here somewhere. 1081, 1088. That's not it. Signal 86 is going to be what we were talking about, lost property or found property. So I guess 86 doesn't imply in a law enforcement context. But anyways, the point is that that's how I've heard 86 done. Also, conservatives were selling 8646 merch. I don't think anybody interpreted that as a call to violence. I feel like conservatives have found a time that, you know, liberals and progressives might have been hyperbolic in the way that they wanted to cancel Trump. But 86, in my opinion, is not an explicit call to violence at all. Like, you would have to show me an example of 86 being used in a violent context before I will ever concede this argument. And I don't even think I would concede it then if it was used in a violent context once. As a matter of fact, I've started thinking about using it as a dog whistle within my own chat where I'm like, 86 this dude, right? Because it kind of is vague enough. 86 yourself. Because you could say that it's like within the context of cancellation or running out of something, but it's not necessarily homicide, right? Miracle of 86. Let's fucking go, man. Cool. My brain is vaporizing. Good. Let it vaporize with us. The silver jacket, man. Oh my God, I just figured out 8647 in real time. I'm happy we could help. All right. Gen X says, look, that desire exists amongst many in the country. The shells had nothing to do with that. Yeah, exactly. So they're in my opinion, they're freaking out about something that doesn't mean what they think it means. Cool. Cool. All right. We agree enough. There's enough overlap in chat. Let's continue.
Here's his explanation on MSNBC.
Was there anything in the back of your mind that said, maybe I just shouldn't post this?
Yeah, no, literally nothing, because it seemed entirely innocent and clever to me. I have never, and actually still don't associate 86 with violence, but because I heard that some folks were, whether they do that reasonably or not, I don't want any part of it. And so that's why I took it down from my Instagram account.
That's perfectly reasonable. That is so perfectly reasonable. I can't believe that we're pretending that this isn't reasonable. If somebody wants to give me contradictory evidence, I'm perfectly fine doing it. If you want to say James Comey as a former FBI or whatever, it just kind of informs Sorry, I need to explain something. Donald Trump has repeatedly violated his oath of office and joked about evaporating the Constitution of the United States. I, as a former law enforcement member and as a former Marine, swore to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. By talking about evaporating the Constitution of the United States, Donald Trump has identified himself as my ideological enemy. And so, because I swore an oath to the Constitution of the United States, the previous people who were attacking the Constitution of the United States, like, I don't know, communists or jihadists or Islamists who sympathize with jihadists, we didn't fight them in the marketplace of ideas. We didn't fight them on Twitter. We shot them, right? So when somebody says, well, he's your countryman, so you have to extend to him the grace that you would a citizen, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And we shouldn't go to civil war just because somebody talks about how they dislike the Constitution and its restraining of its power. But you have to understand how conceptually dangerous that is. And not only that, James Comey, being a law enforcement officer who dedicated his entire life to protecting and defending the Constitution of the United States, I don't begrudge him hating Trump, because every day Trump wakes up and takes a shit on what James Comey dedicated his life to. So why wouldn't you get pissed off? Why wouldn't you make a meme social media post, especially when you're retired? You know, this feels pusillanimous. It feels very weak. It feels very pearl clutchy from a right-wing perspective. LB says, so Connor, would you say your fellow vets who voted for Trumpelskin are traitors to the Constitution? They probably don't think that they are, but I also so for instance, there's this guy, he has a Greek handle. He's a former special forces guy, and he served in the war on terror. And I think he's a good guy. I forget his specific name. I could look it up, but I don't think I would find him because I don't know how to type in Greek letters. So he's a good dude. And I think that he supports and defends the Constitution of the United States. But from his perspective, he's been propagandized for a decade that Democrats have subverted elections, flooded the country with Hispanic immigrants who disproportionately vote left-wing, that they have sold out the values of the country, and that also the uniparty, Republicans and Democrats, who are corporate, internationalist, globalist dickheads, have effectively subverted the will of the American people, and therefore the Constitution of the United States is barely worth the paper that it's written down on. So while he still believes in the United States of America, a land of free people with freedom of conscience, freedom of speech, all that kind of stuff, he thinks that the government and the uniparty have run away and effectively evaporated the country that he once cared about. And so for that narrative, I'm trying to fight him on that narrative, because having a shitload of Hispanics in your country doesn't somehow destroy the Constitution of the United States. Having a international economy that the American military hegemony breaks down or supports doesn't mean that the United States is somehow defunct. So that narrative is poisonous, and it's infected the veterans who support and the gun people who support Trump. So I'm trying to fight that narrative as much as I can. Excuse me. Kamala Harris, who said, if you own a gun, cops should be able to take warrantless search your home to make sure they are stored correctly. I agree with your Trump takes. Kingslayer, exactly. And every time that Democrats say that they are willing to do an assault weapons ban, that they want to do warrantless searches of your house, that they want to do this, they want to do that, the Democratic Party doesn't seem like the party that wants to preserve the republic. They seem like people who want to take their turn at the wheel of power in order to screw over conservatives and libertarians within the United States of America. That's another narrative, man. You got to understand, every single time that Democrats say, oh, well, COVID was an emergency, therefore we can ignore the 4th Amendment, or COVID was an emergency, therefore we can ignore the 14th. When it comes to voting, voting is used in order to hurt black people, so we can't verify who is actually voting in this country. When you say, oh, well, people shouldn't have to get an ID, blah, 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 blah. The fraud is so low. When you say we should be able to take people's guns away without due process, all of those things feel like you don't actually care, Democrats, in reference to a Republican perspective. It feels like Democrats don't actually care about the Constitution. They just care about wielding power. And so as a result, Republicans have said to themselves, if Democrats only care about wielding power and they don't care about the Constitution, why would we let them totally destroy the country that we care about in the name of some 250-year-old document? Which is like a wildly dangerous precedent to set. Whew. LB says, Connor, who gave you a word a day calendar? Pusillanimous. Pusillanimous is long form for the female genitalial slur, but it actually just means coward. I use pusillanimous all the time because my mom told me to stop using the P word. So anyways, did she actually say that stuff? Kamala, gun owner and former prosecutor herself. Yeah. I trust Connor with my egg rolls. Thank you. LB, I don't disagree with you. I'm telling you the narrative from the right-wing side. I don't disagree with you that MAGA is infinitely worse. MAGA is infinitely worse when it comes to subverting the Constitution. I'm telling you that the tepid supporters of MAGA, I'm telling you what they tell themselves. Okay? What if the shells were just totally washed ashore randomly? Oh, lol. All right, you guys are having fun. Let's go.
This is horse shit, Michael. He's just lying. He's lying.
Look, why? What's the evidence that 86 is an explicitly violent call to action?
I want to be as fair and charitable as I can. James Comey is a huge weirdo with artistic pretensions. Do you remember when the Robert Mueller investigation came out? James Comey took this bizarre photo of himself in the woods looking up at the sky. So I don't want to understate the chance that he's just a weirdo. However, you have to take the context here in. If he says, well, 86, to get rid of somebody, that doesn't imply violence. Okay, maybe he's just kind of ignorant and obtuse, but within the context of President Trump, who was nearly murdered twice, one time with a bullet hitting his ear, coming within a 20th of an inch of blowing his brains out on stage.
I love that this conversation is happening where they're talking about the potential assassination of Donald Trump, and Destiny is like the guy who's like, lol. Sacred Snow says, I don't know what to tell these people. The Dems have some stupid stances. Point me to where they've tried to do dictatorial stuff. I can point to January 6th and habeas rhetoric. Yeah, you can. And you can also point to the 2022 tweet where Trump talks about suspending the Constitution. Not only is Trump infinitely worse on this topic, but what's hilarious is they point to Trump, or they point to Biden trying to figure out a way to get student loan forgiveness. Because the Supreme Court came down and they said, you don't have the authority to blanket pardon student loans. And Biden said, okay, we got that ruling. We don't like that ruling. We're going to explore other options to see if we can do it a different way. And there was no way it was going to get passed through Congress. So Trump and right-wingers point to that as Biden being a dictatorial maniac because he was trying to figure out ways to get around the court in order to forgive student loans. which is hilarious because on one hand, you got forgive student loans. On the other hand, you got coup the frickin' government. It's crazy. Crazy. Anyways.
When you have the entire Democratic Party, all the way up to Joe Biden, who predicated his presidential campaign on the notion that Donald Trump posed an existential threat to the country, that is to say, justifies his assassination. Within that context, Comey had to know. Either Comey...
So this is another thing that's really annoying to me, is if somebody says something that's dangerous, but it's true, then saying the dangerous thing isn't an indictable offense. And so what I mean by that, I'm just going to show you this because no Trumpelskin, as somebody is calling them in chat, no Trumpist has been able to defeat this single thing. Trump 2022 Constitution tweet. And this is after January 6th. This is after the fake electors. So with the revelation of massive and widespread fraud and deception in working closely with big tech companies, the DNC and the Democratic Party, do you throw the presidential election results of 2020 out and declare the rightful winner, or do you have a new election? A massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. Our great founders did not want and would not condone false and fraudulent elections. So based off of this inference, he is saying with the revelation of massive fraud, which he hasn't proven, by the way, he's had 5 years to prove the fraud, and he still hasn't. With the proven fraud, which he hasn't proved, in or out of court, do you just throw out the election and declare Donald Trump president, or do you suspend all the rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution? This is evil. This is an existential threat to the constitutional order of the United States. There are MAGA Republicans who are saying that after the Supreme Court rules on a topic, Trump should ignore the Supreme Court anyways, because what are they going to do about it? Trump is an existential threat to the Republican order. Trump is an existential threat to the constitutional order because when he evaporates the balance of power between the three branches, he effectively says, I'm going to do what I want to do and you can try and stop me, which boils down to an actual gunfight. So that would be people who are loyal to the Republic versus people loyal to Trump getting into a gunfight. So what do you want me to say? He's exactly what all the woke libs said he was. He's exactly what all the brunch libs said he was. What do you want me to say, dude? If it's true, it's true.
He is the dumbest person on earth, or he knew what he was doing. And I want to be charitable. I think he kind of knew.
I don't want to be charitable. Sorry, Mujahid. This is bullshit. And you know it is, don't you? Come on, just a minute.
So, if MAGA does believe that James Comey was intentional in posting that and 86 means kill, then like I said in your last answer, I want everything to be fair and balanced. I'm trying to bring people together. Like you said in the last one, release every single information about Joe Biden's public health.
Do you believe James Comey when he says, do you believe him when he Instagrammed the picture of 8647 the former FBI director? I had no idea what that meant.
You're going to like my answer. You're going to like my answer. I'm fair and balanced here. If you truly believe, and if my co-panelists here, my MAGA co-panelists believe that James Comey intended that 86 meant to kill Joe Biden and you want to investigate him, I say fine. But then you also have to investigate Jack Posobiec. Oh, you know, the MAGA dude who lit.
Jack Posobiec actually tweeted out multiple times 8646, and then he had the balls to freak out about 8647. I hate Jack Posobiec almost more than everybody else.
Actually sold merchandise while Joe Biden was
talking about him, Majai. Stop the distraction.
Wait a second.
Focus on the
stop being a
stories.
hypocrite. If you think 86 means to kill, then you have to prosecute Jack Posobiec, who was making money off of mercendise that's at 8646 while Joe Biden was president. Then you have to also investigate Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz, let me finish. Matt Gaetz said 86, not Democrats. Matt Gaetz said 86 Republicans, including Mitch McConnell, right? So, and Kevin Johnson. So maybe if you want to prosecute James Comey, I'm being fair. If you want to prosecute James Comey, you got to prosecute Jack Posobiec.
But once again, Majai, you're not answering my simple question. Do you believe Comey or not? Yes or no?
I do not believe that James Comey and the overwhelming majority of people who liked that thought that it meant killing Donald Trump. The person who tried to kill Donald Trump was a Republican, a Trump supporter, a gun nut. It means 86. If anyone's worked in restaurants or is a waiter, 86 means to cancel an order. So if you believe 86 means to kill, then you got to prosecute Jack Posobiec
the
and
reason
Matt
that's
Gaetz.
not an
Let's
apt
do it.
comparison is because we're not saying in all contexts 86 always means you want to murder somebody.
Yeah,
we're saying that in the context of Donald
You
Trump,
guys are getting
who was
desperate.
literally murdered twice.
You guys are getting desperate. Donald Trump is underwater, Michael and David.
In that case,
you guys are getting really
you guys
desperate.
keep bringing up that they tried to kill Donald Trump twice. You know what else happened twice? He got impeached twice as well. So maybe 86 could be the third impeachment attempt.
All right, Dave Rubin.
All right. Well, first off, I'm really amazed by Wajat's authenticity and honesty. It's really quite remarkable, and I'm sure nobody can see through it. It's,
Russia
it's
didn't pay me.
Should,
just me.
The guy should have a pin over here. I tell the truth. It's really incredible. You know, the other thing about 86, and I'm impressed. I doubt you ever worked in a restaurant. I did, and yes, it's true. If they don't have the porterhouse anymore, you 86 the porterhouse. That means you don't have it anymore. So the waiters know when they're going out there. But the other thing that the 86 came from was
Dave Rubin is capable of telling the truth. That's nice.
The 86th floor on the Empire State Building. And do you know what the 86th floor on the Empire State Building is? That's the observation floor. And that's where the mafia in the old days used to take guys that owed them some money and toss them off the roof of the Empire State Building. That is a fact. You can also check that on Grok or ChatGPT or whatever your favorite search engine is. Now, as to whether he meant literally when he was just wandering the beach and he magically sees these numbers and thought it was artistic and whatever else, as to whether he actually was trying, as the former FBI director, to instigate someone to kill Donald Trump, I can only leave that up to what is going on in his heart and in his soul. I suspect that's not the truth. I also am not somebody that wants to jail everybody for a bad joke or a stupid picture or anything else. So whether it was any of those people that you just mentioned that had done that previously, I'm not for jailing the guy for it, but I think we can call a spade and know that if the shoe is on the other foot, these people would be going absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
So I think this one is pretty clear.
No question. Okay,
Maybe
Destiny.
they should wear a MAGA hat. Maybe wear a MAGA hat and try to 86 the election and try to take out Mike Pence, you know, like the violent insurrectionist that Donald Trump pardoned and now has given $5 million.
I tell you what, if there was an Oscars ceremony for playing whataboutery, you, my friend, are the Daniel Day-Lewis
Hypocrisy.
of the whataboutery
All of
Oscars.
this is a whataboutery. All of this is a whataboutery away from Donald Trump's presidency. Anything to discuss anything besides the multiple times he's referenced the Second Amendment, but besides the time he tweeted out the video of the,
let's talk about
tied up
Destiny.
Joe Biden in the back of the truck.
It's a
about
TV
all
show,
of the
and they were doing a
comments,
segment about what the former FBI
there's always an
director
excuse.
did.
There's always a reason.
Best supporting whataboutery winner is you, Destiny. I want to talk about quickly about a conspiracy theory, and you're going to like this, Wajahat, because this involves conspiracy theory about Jeffrey Epstein and whether he did take his own life or not. Incredibly, and you might be startled by this, Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, two people you probably think lead the charge in conspiracy theory spreading, investigated this and announced the following.
You said Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. People don't believe it.
Well, I mean, listen, they have a right to their opinion, but as someone who has worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor, who's been in that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing, you know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
He killed himself. You want me to? I've seen the whole file.
So, Wajahat, there we have a wide-ranging conspiracy theory quashed by Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, unequivocally. I presume you, as a man who abhors conspiracy theories, unless you're spreading them about assassination attempts, you would like to immediately applaud them for clearing this up.
All I got to say is good luck, Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, because never go full conspiracy theorist. This is going to be MAGA eating its own tail. You know the people are really pissed off, Piers? Not me, MAGA. Because MAGA wants the public records of the Epstein files. They were promised it. And now Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, who promoted the conspiracy about the deep state, right, and pro-January 6th, now they are the deep state, head of the FBI and the deputy. And guess what? MAGA is pissed off. And the reason why, probably, they don't want to release these records is Jeffrey Epstein, according to his own words, you've heard the tapes, He said, who was his closest friend? Donald Trump. Who did he party with? Donald Trump. Who's on the flight logs?
Oh my God,
Donald
you're
Trump.
about to
There's
spread the
video
worst
of him
conspiracy
partying with
theory.
Donald Trump.
Wow.
What? No, they're friends. You heard,
Wow.
what
Well, John,
conspiracy
are
theory?
you suggesting
have videos
Donald
of
Trump
partying with
killed Jeffrey Epstein? Is that what you're doing, having announced you hate conspiracy theories?
You said that.
Is that your position?
No, I think he killed himself. I think Dan and Kash Patel are actually honest. I think he killed himself. But MAGA's pissed off right now because MAGA was promised full release of the public files. Pam Bondi hasn't done it. Kash Patel hasn't done it. Dan Bongino hasn't done it. If you're paying attention to MAGA right now, they're divided right now, and they're going after Dan and Kash, and this is going to be a huge problem for MAGA. Not for the rest of us, not for the normies.
Hold on, I
but
thought I
this
was
is
the
why you
normies.
have a
I wouldn't be quite so
conspiracy.
hasty with that
I we're
self-description.
representative of MAGA. Can we get in on this?
Yes.
I'm not
Well,
going after Dan and
I-
Cash. I don't know Cash personally. I know Dan pretty well, and I trust Dan. I don't think Dan would lie. You got to pay attention not only to what Dan and Cash said, but what they didn't say. They didn't say that Jeffrey Epstein's suicide was all on the up and up. They didn't say that Jeffrey Epstein didn't have connections to intelligence agencies. They didn't say that Jeffrey Epstein wasn't permitted to kill himself. The fact that you had malfunctions of multiple security cameras and multiple guards not showing up, they didn't say that Jeffrey Epstein didn't, as Alan Dershowitz suggested the other day, pay the guards off to allow him to kill himself. There's still all sorts of questions about it. There's very legitimate questions, unless you, Wadjet, think that the Jeffrey Epstein case was just open and shut and there's no reason to dig any deeper. Obviously, there are very legitimate questions about it. But what Dan and Cash said can be true, and there can still be much more to learn about the corruption that involves very, very high levels of government.
Well, the biggest conspiracy theory, which I think happens to be true, is that there were clearly a lot of very high-profile people who knew what Jeffrey Epstein was up to and have never been held to account. And it is completely ridiculous that the only person languishing in a prison in America for any connection to do with Epstein is Ghislaine Maxwell, his madame, who helped him facilitate a lot of this abuse and is quite rightly serving a very long prison sentence. But no man has ever, who was participating with him, has ever been brought to justice. I mean, that is ridiculous.
That is the crazy thing that I hope that we can break bread on is Trump and Epstein were boys in the 80s and 90s and they partied together, et cetera, et cetera. It seems like they had a falling out at some point. Donald Trump even publicly calling him out for liking young girls and all that kind of stuff. There's allegations that Trump himself hooked up with an underage prostitute in New York as young as like 13 and was like physically and sexually abusive. But the problem is that there isn't like physical evidence. There isn't videotapes that we have. There aren't pictures that we have. Now, when it comes to Epstein himself, Ghislaine Maxwell's dad is Robert Maxwell. Robert Maxwell was a triple agent for the United Kingdom, Russia, and Israel, and he's interred in Israel. And when he was buried, there were members of the Mossad who went to his funeral, and some politician for Israel said, we don't even know, like people will never know all of the crazy things that Robert Maxwell did for the state of Israel. And effectively what it's believed, because Robert Maxwell was a fraud, he did a Ponzi scheme in order to get him trapped with all this financial rigmarole. And he was also a media magnate in the United Kingdom. It's believed that he was probably honeypotting powerful people back in the 70s and 80s. And that Ghislaine Maxwell became aware of that. And that Ghislaine Maxwell, who's his daughter, hooked up with Jeffrey Epstein, and Jeffrey Epstein continued that operation. So Jeffrey Epstein was probably somebody who hired underage prostitutes, got them to hook up with wildly powerful men, videotaped it, photographed it, and then used that as blackmail and sold their information to the CIA, the Mossad, and any other intel agency that wouldn't get him killed. So the reason why we still don't have any kind of resolution to this case, even though Pam Bondi has admitted that there are tens of thousands of hours of Jeffrey Epstein sexually abusing young girls, and that there's, by inference, there's probably other powerful people who are involved, is because this was sold to the CIA, sold to Mossad, sold to the UK, sold to France in order to blackmail powerful people into doing what these governments wanted them to do. So nothing will ever come from Epstein. Trump burned everything when he died. Maybe. Intel agencies having a history of using honeypots. It's more known than the Russians, Eastern Europeans, but probably done by Israel. Yeah. Connor, none of Maxwell's shenanigans have anything to do with Trump and Epstein's relationship. Why not? None of Maxwell. So we're talking about Robert and Ghislaine have anything to do with Trump and Epstein's relationship. Why not? Who's to say in the 80s and 90s that Jeffrey Epstein didn't pretend to be Donald Trump's friend and then have Trump have sex with underage prostitutes, and then Jeffrey Epstein, despite them having a rocky relationship, they, who's to say that they didn't partially have a falling out over that? What makes you so certain? I don't know if you're being sarcastic or not. Connor, none of Maxwell should get, yeah. I don't know if you're being sarcastic or not. So I would be sarcastic about that. I would be suspicious about Donald Trump. I would also be suspicious of Bill Gates. I would also be suspicious of a few other powerful people. Alan Dershowitz, Bill Gates, Donald Trump. I'm trying to think of some other people, but there are other people who were absolutely associated with Epstein. Hence why no one in Trump 1.0 could pass a background check. Interesting. All right. Yeah, maybe you're being sarcastic. I can't tell. I'm going to let this run. I need to grab some water. Sorry, I have bodily functions. But the Dersh. Don't Hirsch the Dersh. True. All right.
I want to ask you, Destiny, about...
No, I got to say this because I don't want to be a straight Democratic shill. Bill Clinton was partying on Lolita Island multiple times. Right? Bill Clinton, the Clintons are 100% wrapped up with Epstein. Bill Clinton, known philanderer, loves young women, loves massages, loves getting head from, Monica Lewinsky. He was seen on Jeffrey Epstein's island multiple times chilling with young women. Now, none of the young women have come forward. Maybe Bill Clinton's a gentleman. Maybe he was very nice to the 16-year-old prostitutes that he was hooking up with. But Jeffrey Epstein 100% had dirt on Bill Clinton. Yeah. Get a huge bottle just for water. Well, I mean, I have this. It's a Stanley cup. It's like a quart. It's like 32 ounces. That's why I always have to go to the bathroom. Yeah. All right. I'll be right back.
That's something that's just been dropping, which is about Bruce Springsteen told a UK.
All right. Let me say something real quick. If you, well, hold on. Dr. Zaya says, we know Bill Clinton loves brutally mid women, not sure about kids. You guys need to differentiate. Listen, I understand it's easy to call everyone a pedophile in online politics, but we're not talking about 8-year-old girls. We're talking about 16-year-olds. All of the prostitutes that we know were between the ages of 14 and 17. So we're not talking about prepubescent children. We're talking about post-pubescent teenagers. Like the main photo, who is it? The main photo for Prince Charles, I think. Prince Charles, Epstein photo is this girl, and this girl was 16 or 17 at the time, right? So this isn't a prepubescent girl. This is a teenager. It's a late teenager. So they recruited these girls when they were 14, 15, 16 because it was illicit, but they were still adult enough that normal men might find them attractive. Right? So this girl could be 18 or 19. I would have no idea. But she was 16 in the picture because she was specifically recruited. Discussing Epstein, bored now? Old school. Shut up. Thank you for your donation the other day, but shut up. I'm bored now. Okay, go watch something else. Easy solution. All right. Gonna go hit the head. Anyways, be right back.
Proud that Donald Trump was unfit and treasonous. Trump responded in his normal, calm, self-effacing manner, called him a dried-out prune of a rocker on Truth Social. Highly overrated, Bruce Springsteen. Not a talented guy, just a pushy, obnoxious jerk. And then he posted this video. And my question, Destiny, is can you watch that with a straight face? And it appears you can. Did you not find that even vaguely funny?
Every time I see a picture of the 9% body fat, 180-pound, rippling muscled Trump, because of the very real medical report we saw that assesses his physical condition, I'm in awe of him. I do agree with what Bruce Springsteen said, though. And I think the courts are basically reaffirming this, that Donald Trump is doing everything he can to destroy rule of law in this country. And that's why we are so desperate to talk about literally anything else, even if that's the prostate of the former president, than what Trump's current behavior.
I've got a question for you, just to see whether your own health and whether your own Trump derangement syndrome is at an advanced aggressive stage. And it's this. Do you give Trump any credit for reducing the number of illegal people coming over the southern border by 96% in 3 months? Yes or no?
It's a strange question. Like,
not really. It's a very simple.
It kind of is.
It's a very simple, factual question.
If
He
you
has
had
done
brain,
that.
if you had cancer of the brain and I cut your head off, would you give me credit for getting rid of the cancer? I mean,
Wow.
I guess. I mean,
You
illegal
don't think
immigration
it's-
has
you don't think it's an
illegal-
achievement?
Illegal immigration has definitely decreased. All of our tourism has decreased. If part of the reason why the immigration or illegal immigration has decreased is because nobody wants to come to this country anymore because they can see it's turning into a massive shit show. I mean, does he get credit for that? I guess, sure.
Piers, can I defend it?
Yes, you can.
I think it has to do with the foreign
All right,
terrorist
listen, as
organization
a,
Well, I don't think it
laminated
even, to be
as
honest
a-
with you, Dave, it doesn't even have to be defended.
It
Obviously,
doesn't have to be defended.
obviously, it's
but
a stunning
you know what, I'll do it
achievement,
anyway because
which everybody
I'll
should
defend it
say
anyway
is a
because
great
I'm
achievement.
a laminated card-carrying member of MAGA. I go to the meetings with Knowles. He brings the cigars. I bring the tequila. We talk.
God, I hate these guys. We just killed 3 million people by canceling international HIV treatment. We just killed thousands of Ukrainians by canceling our intel sharing. We just emboldened Iran, North Korea, and Russia to be more shitty on the world stage. Dude, I fucking hate these guys. I hate them. They suck. They suck. They suck so bad. They just simp for the most murderous, incompetent, stupid administration on the planet. Now, bear in mind, I'm assuming I'm coming back into the conversation. They're talking about mass immigration or whatever and how it's plummeted. Yeah, good on Trump. But is he actually securing the border in such a way that we have physical barriers and we have CBP to the point that when he leaves, we're actually going to be able to continue to secure the border? Because if he doesn't secure the border, that means the second that we get a normie Republican or a normie Democrat back in office, that means that the border opens back up again because we need it for agriculture and need it for construction. So I hope you enjoy the 3 years of reduced Hispanics. The second that Trump gets back out of office, we're going back to the status quo. Connor, I just don't see the point in continuing to discuss Epstein when there's other issues. What? Old school, you're going to one guy me. Why should we talk about Epstein? We should talk about Epstein because there was an intel agent who blackmailed the most powerful people in our fucking country. What are you talking about? He was boys with Trump. He was boys with the Clintons. He was boys with the royal family. He got video and photos of wildly powerful men having sex with underage prostitutes and leveraged that for the intel community. Why wouldn't you care about that? What the fuck are you talking about? Sorry for cussing, but that's crazy to me. The fact that you're like, oh, Epstein, it's boring. We already know everything. Man, what? Are you on the list? Did you go to Lolita Island? Were you on the Lolita Express? Is that why you want to stop talking about it? What the hell? Pam Bondi is sitting on 30,000 hours of footage of Jeffrey Epstein sexually abusing underage girls with some of the world's most powerful men. Why is she sitting on that footage? She's sitting on that footage because they're wildly powerful. What the fuck? Sorry for cussing so much. Sorry, Mom. Sorry, Ken. Sorry, Jesus. But what the fuck are you talking about? Why is the sexual abuse of teenage prostitutes not a priority for you by the world's most powerful people? Okay. Anyways, I'm sorry for getting mad, but Bo Dickerson, I thought a border wall was racist. I'm mildly racist. Welcome to the program. I love Central and South Americans. I want to conquer Central and South America and annex it. Okay? That being said, the other alternative is securing our border. Those are the two options, in my opinion. We should still let in shitloads of Central and South American migrants in order to work in construction and agriculture, but we should still have a secure border. A lot of it is heresy, though. No definitive evidence and no people beyond Maxwell going to prison. Yeah, probably because they're sweeping. Jack Darko says, Connor swearing. Guess I'll unsubscribe. I know. I cuss a lot. My apologies. I try to keep it PG-13 because I know that there's nicer people who watch the content. I say give those we can amnesty and a better pathway for the rest. The undocumented already pay taxes and are a net benefit to the country. Yeah, agriculture. They're like, oh, you want Central Americans to work in agriculture and construction? Are you just looking for a cheap labor force so America can profit from it? Yes. Yes, I want a cheap labor force. I want a labor force that's willing to do difficult, dirty jobs for inexpensive prices that makes our economy boom. Yep, you caught me. You caught me. I want 3 Mexican bros to get a 2-bedroom apartment. I want them to work together in order to have that apartment. I want them to spend $1,000 a month on their apartment, and then $500 a month on groceries. I want them to work their asses off, and I want them to send the rest of the money home so they can build mansions back in Central America. That's what I want. Okay, I want a mutually beneficial economic relationship. It should be brought up when discussing Trump, though, given that he's an assaulter. Sure. Sapien Green says, I think sex slave is probably a more appropriate term. Prostitute infers some degree of consent. Well, we don't know the exact definitions. As an example, the girl who's in that picture, I think she just died from either suicide or a drug overdose. What was her name? We'll look her up. Epstein witness dies from suicide or overdose. She might have been the main one. Virginia Giuffre. Giuffre. So this gal was the main one in the photo with the Prince Charles or whatever. And so she was the main one to testify. The court case didn't go anywhere. But if I understand the recruitment process, it was Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell would find girls who didn't have dads in South Florida, and they would say, oh, you should come by the house and hang out. And they were like teenagers at Palm Beach County High School. And so if they didn't have parental figures in their lives, they would have them come over, and they would pay them like hundreds of dollars to like hang out, drink, party, and give massages. And I don't know if they train them as masseuses, but I'm assuming that they actually did train them as masseurs in order to give them the cover of professional employment. And so they would become masseurs, but then they would offer whenever they had people over to the Lolita Express, or they would offer people to come over to St. Thomas Island, they would offer massages to the men who were coming over. And then I don't know what they would do after the massage, but I'm assuming they were effectively like well-paid teenage prostitutes. And so they would sleep with the men, and then they would use the fact that they slept with an underage prostitute as blackmail against those men. So she wasn't like, as far as I know, there could be other people who were sex trafficked. There were 100% could be people who were enslaved. No idea. But Virginia Giuffre was like a normie high schooler from South Florida. Connor is swearing. I'm going to rage in all caps on True Social. True. Connor, not just agricultural. Yeah, also construction. Sacred Snow says, Valor Media Network, everyone keep an eye on Top Rope. I can hear Brad's walk-up music. Uh-oh. Then Gen X for $10. Thank you for the donation, Queen. Greatly appreciated. I'm only here for the F words. Excellent. I say kick out all the illegals, but make legal immigration easier. Sure. I don't care. What the F are you talking about? She was 15, massage, nah, grooming, and sexual assault? Sure. Muggafucker. You can cuss if you want. Remember Prince Andrew claiming he couldn't have done this because he doesn't sweat? Lol. Yeah. Yeah. So anyways. So LB, I'm going to clarify something because I don't want you to get the impression that I'm trying to minimize sexual assault or grooming. We agree. They 100% were grooming teenage girls into being prostitutes. However, there's a different kind of sex trafficking, which is where they have women who are coming up from Central and South America, and they just say, hey, we're going to take you to wherever, and you're going to make tons of money. And then they make them work at strip clubs, and they make them work at massage places. But when they get off of work, they drive them straight to a different location, and they lock them in their rooms. And so those people I view as sex slaves. They cannot escape. If they do, they'll be murdered. If they try to escape, they'll be beaten and or murdered. They are restricted in the way that they participate in their, any kind of extra time. They don't have control of their money, and they're effectively used for their bodies in order to produce cash for pimps. Oh, sounds kind of racist, Connor. Well, I mean, sure, but let's take a look at it. Google demographics, ethnic demographics of construction industry. Ugh. So the construction industry in the U.S. is ethnically diverse. White workers constituting the largest group, followed by Hispanics or Latino workers. The most common ethnicity of construction workers is white at 53%, followed by Hispanic or Latino at 30%, Black or African at 11%, and unknown at 4%. So 30% of the construction industry is Hispanic. And then how much of the construction industry is undocumented? I think it's a sizable portion. In 2022, but almost a quarter of the construction industry is undocumented. So it's between 15 and 25% is undocumented. Then how much of the agricultural industry is Hispanic? In the agricultural industry, a significant portion of the workforce identifies as Hispanic. Large percentage of farmers are 8 defended by these workers. No, there's no way it's 8%. It's not 8%. How much of agriculture is undocumented? 40% of farm workers are undocumented. The 8% of the agricultural workforce are not Hispanic. I guarantee you it's substantively more. And they're saying 40% of them are agricultural workers. That's crazy. So you can say it's a stereotype. You can say that there's more white agricultural and construction workers than there are Hispanics. I'll agree with you that I'm stereotyping. But 40% of farm workers are undocumented. And I think it was 25% of the construction industry is undocumented. And by the way, that construction industry stat includes all sorts of crazy nuances that I'm not talking about. That's probably talking about commercial construction. That's probably talking about, like specialized labor, like heavy equipment operators and all that kind of crap. It's including GCs. It's including construction admin. It's including all of those people. Whereas what I'm trying to point at is the actual laborers. The laborers are probably disproportionately undocumented, disproportionately Hispanic. So I'm not trying to be like racist. I'm not trying to say like, oh, only Hispanics do that. I'm just saying that it's disproportionately Hispanic, disproportionately undocumented. So if I was loose with my words, that's fine. You can say, Connor, you're being loose with your words. My point is that you said all you want Latino immigrants for is agriculture and construction. That is a racist statement. Maybe you don't realize that. Well, LB, let me explain it further, okay? So, and you can tell me whether or not my conception is totally racist. Bear in mind, I'm a little tired and a little fussy, so I might be saying some crazy stuff, and it's okay to call me out on me saying crazy stuff. However, what I am saying is that we have, let's take the stats that we just looked at. 40% of agricultural labor is undocumented and therefore likely from Central or South America. And then 25% is construction industry. And we haven't even differentiated labor, like hard labor versus like administration and GCs and heavy equipment operators. I almost guarantee you, if you eliminate heavy equipment and construction admin and commercial buildings, then effectively you're going to up that percentage substantively, right? So we have that labor pool. What that labor pool is doing is they're participating in the economy, and because of the differences in money, they're able to get roommate. Because I have undocumented friends, they are able to get roommates. They work those jobs. They make more money than they would if at home. They aggressively save and they send that money home. What happens with that money is it provides for their spouse, it provides for their children, and it provides for a new home that they build over like 10 or 20 years. They build themselves a middle-class Central American life. And then after 20 years or 30 years of busting their ass in agriculture or construction, they go home, and they might not be able to retire. They might still have to work back home, but they can afford to have a decent life in Central and South America because they worked in the United States and sent that money home. The other thing that happens, though, is that there are Central American and South American undocumented migrants who come here and participate in the disproportionately in the construction and agricultural industry, but then they fall in love with a local, or they fall in love with a Hispanic local, and they have a baby, and that baby has citizenship, and then that baby has access to decent quality education, college, you know, the American dream, et cetera, which I also don't think is bad, right? So you can say that I'm being prejudiced against Hispanics because I'm associating them disproportionately with agriculture and construction. You can say that's an unnuanced level of the world. You can say that me wanting that labor in the United States is selfish, and I'll agree with you. But I also think that there's good things that happen for those families, both within Central America and within the United States. So if I'm racist, I'm sorry. It happens sometimes. I say some racist shit every now and then. Sapient Green for DKK 100. Thank you kindly. It's funny that no one ever really refers to Epstein as a pimp. Yeah, he's a pimp. I want to thank everyone because we actually have a diversity of donors today. Grassroots Hegemon, thank you for your donations. Silver Jacket Man, thank you for your donation. Gen X, thank you for your donation. Sapient Green, thank you for your donation. And I don't know if I said Philip Coffee, but Philip Coffee as well. We effectively had like 5 or 6 people donate to the chat. So thank you kindly. I know that Grassroots carries it, but I do love it when you guys help out as well. It does mean the world to me. Gen X says, one of my Republican state legislators wanted to pass a bill that the illegals could be licensed so they could be insured on construction projects last year. Yeah, and then there's abuses that happen because they're undocumented that I disagree with. LB says, I agree with you. Why are they undocumented? Corporations and others want cheap labor, but don't pigeonhole them. Amnesty. Yeah, relatively speaking, I do want legal immigration to be easier for Central and South American labor. 100%. Documented, but worked with a lot of people who weren't. Exactly. Bo Dickerson says, seasonal agricultural workers from Mexico and Central America was common in the America until the 80s. Yeah, we need to get back to that with like seasonal visas and work visas and all that kind of stuff. LB says, listen, I owned a clean business for 15 years. I couldn't get Americans to come work and do a good job. I get it. Nonetheless, let's have work programs and amnesty. What's your thoughts on amnesty? Well, so, for instance, Kingslayer Damocles said, kick them all out and then bring them back in the right way. I think kicking them all out is kind of a waste of time, energy, resources. If you find a 35-year-old Hispanic male with no criminal record, no tattoos, no gang associations, and he's busting ass in a local business, I don't understand what kicking his ass back to Central America achieves. If he's a productive, healthy, happy member of society, then I would say, here's your work visa, apply for citizenship, and we'll see you in 5 years when we actually get to your application. Also, undocumented pay taxes, like sales taxes. What happened to no taxation without representation? Yeah, I understand. But bear in mind, sorry, we're going to do a quick geopolitical analysis. Google, all my Groyper viewers are going to hate this, but that's okay. Texas, Google Maps. Okay. So with the United States, we annexed this entire territory, but the Rio Grande is not exactly a very firm border between Mexico and us. And I believe in something called geographic determinism. Geographic determinism effectively, I don't believe it wholesale, but it says that there's a predictable flow of humanity based off of geography. And so as a result, culture forms in line with its environment. I'll try to be brief just so we can get back to the content. Here I am in Florida. But just as an example, the Amazon rainforest acts as a barrier between Colombia and Venezuela and Brazil, and so they've developed culturally distinct. Same thing with is this the Andes? I forget, but the Andes Mountains, they separate Chile and Argentina, and so as a result, they have a parallel but different cultural development. And then also Central America and North America, this is, jungle with beaches and all that kind of stuff. So it's very similar geographically to Florida in the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America. However, there's going to be idiosyncrasies between these cultures and these cultures, right? So my whole point, though, is that this Greenland, Canada, United States, Mexico, and South America, this should be a continental power, okay? The way that I think that we could lead the way, we don't have to dissolve our countries. We can keep our countries. But Canada and the United States, should form the northern United States of the Americas and have some kind of like geopolitical superstructure. And if you wanted to include Mexico, I wouldn't care. But I also think that Mexico and all of these countries should form the central United States of the Americas, and they should have like a higher level governmental system. And then I think that the southern United States of the Americas, they should create an economic and military cooperative alliance, right? And then together we could create a continental power that works together for economic, military, security issues and operate as a hegemonic continental power. I would the North American Union, exactly. I would love that. White supremacy would never allow that, Connor. We're working on it. That's why we're trying to evaporate white supremacy. And by the way, just introduce white supremacists to your hot Hispanic friends. Their white supremacy will melt like butter. Kingslayer says, my position isn't letting the ones we kicked come back right away. They get put on the back of the line and have to go through a more stringent process. Okay, I mean, you do you. I think it's wasted energy, but that's just my opinion. Like the EU? Yeah, kind of. Valor Media says, for easy immigration, cooperation, and security. Yeah, 100%. Eben says, a world could have existed if we just passed TPP and U.S. hegemony could have solidified in that way. Shake my head. Yeah, we missed an opportunity. I want more than an economic empire. I want a one world U.S. dominated government. I mean, Christian Valeris, I'm with you, but that's like a 1,000-year project. I'm talking about like a centuries long project. Anyways, I've been yapping for quite a bit. I appreciate all 50 of you tolerating my endless yapping, but let's get back to the content, but the United States of America. But you don't even speak Spanish, talk American. I'm going to go on a limb here, but you don't even speak Spanish, talk American. Yo entiendo poquito, okay? No hablo español, pero yo hablo francés. Y yo entiendo un poquito de español, okay? Sí, güey, fly. Sí.
About these people. Look, I can easily defend
just like
the border. I can easily defend the trade deals. Right? I can easily defend.
I don't know shit about Portuguese. I know Portuguese is like another romance language, but all I hear with Portuguese is like, instead of hitting all the Hispanic words, like Portuguese, like they have the with in like a lot of words, the ish, the ush, the geese. So yeah, anyways.
What he's doing in the Middle East. I can easily defend what he's doing with Russia, Ukraine. I can easily defend what he's doing as it relates
Dave,
to getting wokeness out of the schools and blowing apart the Department of Education.
Wants to host a debate
you
on
can
that,
defend all of those things very easily.
Any one of these topics, Dave, all of these
Can
are
you defend this, Dave Rubin?
The entire world market is shuddering.
Dave
the
Rubin.
bonds market is shuddering as a result of these things. Nobody agrees.
Well, actually, the stock market is the stock market's actually doing fine. Now everyone's calmed down and stopped shaking and screaming. It's actually fine.
All the losses were...
Oh my God, I hate this so much. It's literally the meme where it's like the economy if we didn't hit tariffs, and then it's the economy if we do tariffs, and it's effectively like a U shape that takes the hit of the tariffs and then swings back up, and we're in the U shape.
Dave Rubin, quick question though. The really big
debate. The markets are not fine, but go ahead.
Well, they are. Dave Rubin, straightforward question. The most contentious thing of all, is the boss, Bruce Springsteen, overrated?
Yes, he's overrated. First off, I'm a Long Island guy, so you go to Billy Joel as the default. But any day, you know who I will take over Bruce Springsteen any day? About a month ago, I had the honor of interviewing 90-year-old Frankie Valli, and that guy is still out there performing.
Yeah, but his voice is gone.
He's doing it every night on the road.
Yeah, but his voice is gone. The boss, I mean, come on, with Jarhat, can we find common ground? I think Bruce Springsteen's fantastic. I don't agree with his view about Trump, but I don't think Trump's right to call him overrated.
Great. Bruce Springsteen, look at his catalog. Fantastic catalog. You could disagree with his politics, but how can you knock an American icon, Bruce Springsteen? And show me that you're out of touch without telling me, and I'll show you Dave Rubin. He'll go for Frankie Valli instead of Bruce Springsteen. But all right, that's how you win over the kids.
They were great.
Yes.
Jersey Boys is one of the all-time great movies too.
That means you're out of touch because Frank Sinatra is old and dead. Yeah, that's really terrible if you listen to him.
Yeah, Frankie Valli, total legend. But Michael Knowles, the boss, overrated?
I love Thunder Road. Okay, it's a great song, and I love Atlantic City, even though I think the band did a better version than Bruce Springsteen did. So, look, I like the boss. I think he's pretty good. I also agree he's a little bit overrated. People try to make him into Bob Dylan. He's not really Bob Dylan, and he does kind of look like a dried up prune. So I think what Trump said is true, although I still love my Jersey Shore bops.
Okay, Destiny, can we find any common ground here? Is the boss overrated?
Listen, I grew up listening to Linkin Park and Third Eye Blind and these other bands. Okay, so it's out of my generation, unfortunately. I have no strong opinion here.
Here, Piers, in the spirit of bringing us together, I want to send Wajid a gift after the show. I don't know have his mailing address, but I just wrote "You Tried" and I signed it on a piece of paper here. So can you guys just get this to his people? Would that be possible? Because he tried real hard today, and that's important.
Did you write it, or was it in Russian? Do it in Russian for me. It'll be more authentic.
Still trying. I'll even sign it again.
Comrade Rubles. Do it in Russian, and I'll believe you.
Gentlemen.
Yeah, look at this guy.
Just
Piers,
leave it at Comrade Rubin. I think that's got a nice little ring to it, actually. Gentlemen, thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
Take care.
Thanks.
Well, join me now in the Uncensored studio.
All right. Then, where are we? We're at 12:30. Okay. I'm going to be a bum. Today, okay? So let's take a look at this. I'm just going to hang out with chat real quick. And I do parasocially love you. We're hitting 50 on we've hit 50 2 days in a row on Valor, which is excellent. So, we were in the 10s for the first week. I started advertising it. We got up to the 30s. Then we did a few cross streams with a few other creators, and now we're bumping between 40 and 50. And then we easily broke 50 2 days in a row. So that's excellent. Now, that being said, what's going on? This is all going to be personal stuff. So this is housekeeping. So if you just have some random other creator that you want to go check out, go check them out. If you want to parasocially enjoy hanging out with the chat and myself, then hang out and we're going to talk about some parasocial stuff. Hit me up in chat if you have questions or concerns. Let me summarize that segment real quick. Effectively, I like that Destiny still does a good debate job. Obviously, I have criticisms about the way that he conducts his personal life. I think that anybody that wants to negatively castigate me or negative for associating with him or negatively castigate Steven for all of his bad behaviors, I think that's perfectly fine. And I'm ready to take the heat for associating with Destiny or talking to Destiny or whatever. It is what it is. But the truth is that I would rather speak with Destiny, speak with Fuentes, speak with Schaefer, speak with Lauren Southern, speak with Tim, speak with all these, characters who I disagree with, because I think that's more interesting. I think it's more interesting to not limit yourself off of who's intellectually, rhetorically, and personally pure enough to have a debate or a conversation with. So when it comes to Steven, I think he did a good job. That being said, I do think that effectively it was whataboutism, where every time they brought up the cover up of Biden's health issues, they were just like, well, yeah, but Trump's evil. That can be true, but it's not like a great argumentative tact. So kind of like a 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10 for me. They did what they could, but honestly, I had more fun talking about geopolitical stuff in reference to the Americas becoming a continental economic and military power. I had more fun doing that than I had watching that segment. It is what it is, though. Going into parasocial stuff. What's happened over the past week? The reason why I missed you guys on Wednesday was because we had a family friend who was coming into town, and we had a months-long plan. We planned this back in March, that they were going to be coming into town and to hang out with their kid was going to hang out with my kid. They live in Los Angeles. And then my youngest son has had a horrible pooping disease that knocked him out. And so they were going to a water park. So I couldn't have my youngest son with pooping issues go to a water park and infect other people's kids. I thought that was messed up. So they went to the water park. I watched my kid, and I was elbow deep in mucus poops for 24 hours, which was horrifying. However, he's getting better. My wife passed me a message earlier in the day. He's fine, so we're good. Our plan for Memorial Day weekend is we're going to the west coast of Florida to a beautiful location. I'm not paying for it. I'm not rich. Grassroots isn't paying for it, no matter how generous he's been. We're just paying bills over here at the Counterpoint shop. But the good news is we have a lot of cool metrics that are going up. Not only is Grassroots helping out, not only are some of you other guys in chat helping out financially, but also because we've been posting almost daily content, we're seeing the AdSense revenue creep up as well. So I think that if we keep cooking for another 5 months, we're going to be banging on all cylinders. LB, going into the parasocial chat stuff, LB, I appreciate you tolerating my racism. I'm not always the most squeaky clean progressive or like liberal person. I am a chud. I am a never Trump Republican. I just happen to like Hispanic people, like black people, like trans people because they're people, right? So I don't have that like interpersonal bigotry, but at the same time, like I say some wild shit every now and then that not everybody likes. Oscar Steen says, like the EU, basically, we're probably going back to the Continental stuff, but I'm just going to engage with chat because I am going to the west coast of Florida, and I'm not going to lie, I might leave a little bit early because otherwise it's going to stress out the rest of the family, and I don't want to stress them out this weekend. Oscar Steen says, like the EU, basically, it's useful economically as long as it does not interfere on individual countries' legislation too much. Agreed. So the way that I would view it is northern USA, central USA, and southern USA, they would try to work the way that the current United States of America does, where it's a federal system where states are responsible for their respective legislatures, but ultimately they all abide by an overarching republic, like a Republican constitution. And then what I would do is I would make the NUSA, CUSA, and SUSA, I would effectively make like a UN style mini UN, but the UN would only come together for international trade and common defense. So they would limit themselves not into legislating stuff down to the local level, exclusively how do we maximize productivity and how do we make sure that we're all safe? That's the only thing that the greater United States of the Americas would care about. That would be my structure. LB says, all of our agreements from World War II are effed and will never come back. Batter up China. Wrong. Give it 2 years, Trump will be a lame duck. Give it 4 years, and the establishment will reassert its control. I don't think there's anybody who's anywhere near as charismatic as Trump, and I think MAGA will be power brokers, but I don't think that they'll be as relevant as they currently are. Sapien Green says, you can't have a union like the EU without interfering with countries' internal affairs, just like you can't have the U.S. without the federal government meddling with the states. Don't agree. I'm going to refer you back to the structure that I just said. I can name one Bruce Springsteen song, but I do know he's a patriot who loves the U.S. Good. John says, loved he kept bringing up the Russian thing. It should haunt him forever. Well, listen, if a billionaire, if Metmek Piker DMs me and he says, hey, Connor, I love exactly what you're doing. I think that your takes on the economy, security, global hegemony, Americanism, patriotism, I think it's so based. Here's a $100,000 a month to keep doing what you're doing. You know what my answer is? It's going to be yes. And then when Mehmet Piker is revealed to be a Turkish billionaire, millionaire progressive who is trying to subvert the United States, I'm going to be like, I'm going to be like, you know, he gave me $100,000 to do what I wanted to do. So I took it, you know. Valor Media Network's got a consistent streaming schedule. Yeah, relatively speaking. Now, of course, like there's going to be vacations, people getting sick, all that kind of stuff, but it is growing in the right direction because relatively speaking, I hope you guys can kind of understand that like I'm going to be live 9:30 to 2:30 approximately Monday through Friday. Am I going to have to leave early sometimes? Are people going to get sick? Are there going to be like random meetings and all that kind of bullshit? Yes, but we can meet up in the morning, have coffee together, talk about the news, and review debates together. And I hope that's fun for you because it's definitely fun for me. I'm here for the housekeeping. Thank you, Evan. Thank you, Evan. I'm happy you're here. Also, if you like Warhammer 40K, if you like Adeptus Arbites, go check out my main channel. It's only a 6-minute video. It's not very long at all, but they released a high-quality animation for the Judge Dredd of the Warhammer 40K universe, and I love it. I think it's an excellent animation. K-Sogo says, breaking for lunch. Nope, I'm breaking for my weekend because it's Memorial Day weekend and I'm going to the west coast of Florida and we still have to pack and we still have to do a million other things. I could go watch the PF Jung debate, but realistically, it's an hour long and I kind of have to leave in an hour anyways. So I would rather go take care of my kids who are pooping themselves. I would rather help pack. I would rather do all that kind of stuff. So anyways, LB says, I tune in because I think we mostly agree on the important issues. Well, good, good. Connor, you're a closet progressive, possibly communist. Don't say that. I will physically hurt myself. K-Sogo says, I'm on the Ohio River this weekend for Swift water rescue training. Ooh, it's beautiful down here. I hope you enjoy your vacation, even though I'm fishing every single night. Nice, based. Internationalism, exactly. Look at Brexit. Sure. Have to go, but wanted to thank you till later. Thank you, Dominique Ostrowski. Thank you for the comment. Appreciate it. Sacred Snow says, I don't see how any of our allies can trust us after this. Like, sure, the establishment might recover, but that doesn't mean the American people have. It happens, bro. It happens. Sacred Snow says, I pray that we will just assign these crazy times to mass psychosis. Yeah, I think we will. Kyle says, MAGA will follow the same fate as Maoism. It'll collapse after he is gone and as the inner circle is forcibly removed because of their destructive BS. Hopefully. I'm with you. Evan says, don't even worry about it. He's actually a conservative, so you will be totally fine taking money from Piker's dad. He'd like you more than his own son. Abased. Wait, PF Jung where? I'll show you. Connor, have you seen the Warhammer short on Prime? Of course. I have a breakdown of that. Believe it or not, LB, I am a Warhammer YouTuber first and foremost. I have a 100,000 sub Warhammer breakdown channel, and my breakdown of the Amazon Prime episode has like 500,000 views. So, yeah. Wait, PF Jung where? So, PF Jung, number one, we're going to talk to PF Jung in the future. We'll have our own debates and conversations about the woke right. But number two, he did a debate in conversation with Destiny recently, which is what we were going to review. I'm not going to go over it now because, frankly, we would be here for 3 hours breaking it down, and then I would be late for my vacation, and my wife would have my gonads on a platter. However, let me go ahead and share this screen. I'll bring it up in case you want to review it on your own, because I'm sure something's going to pop off over the weekend, right? Something crazy is going to happen over the weekend. We'll be back on Tuesday because I am taking Monday off. But we'll be back on Tuesday, and we'll either review this or we'll review whatever pops off. So if you go just to PF Jung's channel, let me add this to the stage. It's going to be like the second or third down. It's a recent conversation right here. 3 days ago, debating Destiny on the woke right and the problems with blending comedy and politics. I do want to watch this because PF Jung is friends with J-Reg. I love J-Reg, however you want to pronounce his name. He's also friends with JJ McCullough. I don't know JJ McCullough, but I thought JJ McCullough, he seems friendly and to have fun debating PF Jung. And PF Jung, weirdly enough, we have like 70-80% political alignment, but then he goes for Trump for some reason, and he goes isolationist for some reason. So it's one of those classic things where descriptively we agree on a lot, but then prescriptively we just end up in totally different places based off of inference. So anyways, let me come back to chat because I parasocially love you guys and I want to hang out with you for as long as possible while still taking care of my family. Christian Blair says, have a good weekend, Connor, and chat. See you next time. Thank you, Christian Blair. Your stalwart support is always appreciated. Gen X says, oh, he is useless, but I like to see him get wrecked in debates. Well, listen, I don't agree with you in that regard, but I do think that being a heel is a good way to create content where you effectively become a villain for a certain community. So people love to hate you. I think that's fun. That's what I am for Tim Pool, by the way. LB says, oh, okay, I see you, Connor. Excellent. Enjoy your vacay. I'm taking the next week off and heading up to my lake house. Beautiful. John says, Connor, now that Space Marine 1 is getting a remaster, time to stream the game. That's another Warhammer thing. We are 100% going to be doing, I did a playthrough for Space Marine 2 when it came out. I'm 100% going to do a playthrough for Space Marine 1 when it comes out. And if there's a good response to it, I'll probably do a narrative breakdown of Space Marine 1 the same way that I'm doing with Space Marine 2. I don't think that it'll be as deep because I don't expect it to be as metrically relevant as Space Marine 2, but we're 100% going to do that. Kesogo says, well, happy weekend and happy birthday, folks. Don't forget to thank a vet. Yeah, thank you. Memorial Day is about dead service members, and Veterans Day is about alive service members. But obviously, like, Memorial Day hits different because, you know, it is about dead troops, right? Kesogo says, thank you, Connor, for your service. Well, you're welcome. I had fun. It was very crazy, but it was fun. Philip Coffey says, heading out myself. Have a good trip, and I'm glad your kid is starting to feel better. Thank you, Philip. Thank you for the donation, and thank you for your time. Thank you for liking the stream as well. Eben says, Destiny is also traveling, so definitely stay safe. He has a power like no other when he travels. Yes, exactly. So Tuesday is probably going to be a pop-off stream. Just being real. He just has a normie's view of politics and some stupid views regarding Israel, given the whole acceptance of Zog rhetoric. Yes. PF Jung never has any actual knowledge of facts. He just engages in those debates and uses semantics. I don't know if that's true, but what I do agree with is that he thinks that aesthetics and vibes are more important in modern politics than facts and logic. And so he might lean into that too hard. Christian Blair says, which he fixed given because more familiar with far-right use of Zog. Yeah, he's trying to normalize Zog, but he's trying to He's trying to call out the nefarious influence of the state of Israel on the United States, but then he uses language that's more abrasive, aggressive, and terrible than he means. So he gets swamped into the anti-Semitism of the extremist right. So have a good weekend, man. Thank you, John. Thank you. Hell yeah, sucks for me. Space Marine 1 isn't on PS5 though yet. Good luck with PS. Silverjack Man says, am I the only one who thinks that the Albanian king when I see Zog? Probably. Brooklyn, our favorite resident lurker, says, enjoy your weekend. Thank you, Brooklyn. I appreciate you. Wait, this is random, but have you been losing weight? I just noticed because I bought the full screen. Looking good, boss. So actually, I'm the heaviest I've ever been, and I also have a little bit of a belly. I'm going to go ahead and show it off, just to be honest. So I have a little bit of a tummy right here. And if I turn sideways and I pull it in, I got like a little bit of a tummy. But I am wearing a double XL shirt, and I have been lifting 2 to 3 times per week. So even though I'm heavy and I got a little bit of a belly, I still got like muscles. I still got muscles on top. So, you know, I'm heavier, but I'm also more muscular. So BF says he's vacuous. Take stand already on something. Well, I hope that even when I'm annoying, you appreciate the fact that I'm a centrist who takes a stand. Every time I watch, he hasn't read or can't articulate facts. I just watch him with Pisco and Destiny a couple of times. Maybe it was just those topics. Meh. Take it off. No. Thick boy. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. I appreciate it. Oscar says, hey, I've gotten fat as well lately. It's okay. The point is, even when you get fat, just lift. That way you have muscles on top of your fat, right? And then people can be like, oh, yeah, you got fat. And you can be like, yeah, well, I could still beat your ass. All right. Anyways, so I am going to run. I'm going to use this as an excuse to leave early. Thank you to all the donors. Grassroots, as always, thank you, King. Your support means the world to me. Silver Jacket Man, thank you for the support. That also, all the people who chip in every now and then, that means a lot to me too. Silver Jacket Man, Philip Coffee, Gen X, and Sapient Green, thank you for being stars of the channel. I really do appreciate it. Connor, hot tub stream. Yeah, we will get a legitimate hot tub. But anyways, okay. I parasocially love you. Thank you for hanging out. I hope you enjoyed the content. Thank you for the donations. Please check out the VODs when you're bored. We're still posting VODs daily. So if you missed a segment, you want to check it out, go check it out. And then also, if you don't have any money, then watching the VODs, leaving a comment, liking the content, all that kind of stuff, that it adds up. Now, is it 2 cents at a time, 3 cents at a time? Yeah. But if you get tens of thousands of people doing that, it adds up to money that helps me pay my bills. So I parasocially love you guys. I hope you have a great day. Have an excellent weekend. I'm going to see you on Tuesday. Bye, guys.